Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, good evening. Is it afternoon? I thought it's now evening. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you to Winter School 2016. It's good to see all of you here. I want to welcome, special welcome to our president here with us, Mr. Roy Chimanigire. Please may you stand so that our members can see you. Ladies and gentlemen, our president. Also with us, our senior vice president, Madam Gloria. Thank you. Also our junior vice president with us, Mr. Martin Makaya. If you can stand. Thank you, sir. Also a special welcome to our CEO for the Institute, Mr. Mats Kunaga. Thank you, sir. Also with us, special welcome to our past presidents who are here. I've seen Mr. Munyaradzi Due. Where are you, Mr. Munyaradzi Due? Thank you, sir, for being with us. We've got Brian Chikizana with us. Mr. Tinashe Rodzi. Mats Kunaga again. Mr. Tinashe Rodzi. Emilia Chisango. Where are you, Emilia? Welcome, madam. Mr. Canada Malunga. Where is Canada? I'm sure he's around, is somewhere. Is there any other past president? Apologies if I missed you. Past president for ICAZ? Thank you, sir. Also, special welcome to our council members here with us. I've seen a lot of council members here. Welcome. Thank you, sir. Our Mashonaland district members. Also, special welcome to our council members here with us. I've seen a lot of council members here. Welcome. Also welcome. Thank you, sir. Mashonaland district members. And also, special welcome to our council members here with us. I've seen a lot of council members here. Welcome. Also welcome. Thank you, sir. Mashonaland district members. Also, special welcome to our council members here with us. I've seen a lot of council members here. Welcome. Thank you, sir. Mashonaland district members. Also, special welcome to our council members here with us. I've seen a lot of council members here. Welcome. Thank you, sir. Mashonaland district members. Also, special welcome to make sure that we provide solutions and correct any problem in the economy, to make sure that we create Zimbabwe we want, so that we can create Zimbabwe which can take care of the future of our children and our children's children. It's a generational issue. So we strongly believe this is an opportunity coming together with so powerful speakers here tonight, and also coming through tomorrow, Friday and Saturday. We believe it's an opportunity we have to map the way forward for our country. So we encourage you as members, don't hesitate to stand up and contribute. We shall have a panel of discussion, and we believe that panel of discussion should be critical in us coming up with a document, which we say is for ICAZ, and that's a document that will map the way forward for our country. So I believe you and I have got a role to play in shaping the future of this country. It doesn't matter what challenges we have gone through, but we have to make sure that we play our role in making that future bright for our children. So ladies and gentlemen, that will be our theme for this winter school, and I strongly believe that all of us will go back to our homes, to our working places, and we could have benefited a lot from this. So we want to welcome our speakers here this evening who are here already. I've seen my chairman, Addington Chinake, who is here. Where are you, Addington? There he is. Welcome, sir. We have also Arthur Marara with us. Arthur, are you here? He's not here. Also, we've got Sibusi Siwabango here with us. Just raise your hands, they will see you. Thank you. Mr. Joseph Berecha is here around. Not yet here. We have got also Anesu Daka, who is also our member. We've got also Marco Kwaramba. Are you here with us? Not yet. Also, we have got with us Ms. Titakunda Mugaga. Are you also around here? Thank you, sir. So we want to welcome you as our speakers and hope that you'll be able to work with us during this winter school to be able to come up with something which we can work with for our economy to turn around. So I'll just give you notices before the next event in a few minutes. The first notice I want to give you is we shall be having
work with for our economy to turn around.
There'll be 2 lucky winners.
So I'll just give you.
So I encourage you to buy your tickets. Of course, it's not for free. $10 a ticket. Come on, guys. That's not a lot of money, but we are not accepting net cash. It's big actual cash. All right, the prices are as follows. It's 2 days and 2 nights here at Elephant Hills for 2 couples. So which means there'll be 2 winners, and you can choose your partner to enjoy that prize. So would you kindly see our secretariat and make sure that you buy your tickets? I can guarantee you that that money will be used by the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Zimbabwe. All right. Just to advise you also, tonight we'll be having the bush dinner. Very colorful and very interesting. It's going to be taking place somewhere. So I encourage you to be assembled at 6 p.m. sharp by the swimming pool area. Then the hotel staff will be taking you where the bush dinner is going to be. Also, tonight, when we go for the bush dinner, we should be wearing the ZB jacket. How many of you have got it? If you don't have it, please see Secretariat. The white jacket from ZB is for tonight's dinner, so you should be putting on that jacket. If you don't have that jacket, don't come to eat. We respect our sponsors, so we have to honor them. Also, red t-shirts from CBZ is for the trip tomorrow to Chobe. The Chobe trip tomorrow will be going there at 11:30 in the morning. And it's a very special event. I'm sure most of you will have fun. We thought, let's make it special this time around and have fun outside the country. When Dubai last year, so this year, it's half local, half foreign. Because of the liquidity crisis. Also, for Sports Day, you'll be wearing Old Mutual black golf shirt. So everybody should be putting on that. Then regarding Get Cash, I would want to assume that each one of you have registered and you have received your $25 into your wallet. If you have not done that, can you please see the team from Get Cash or see Secretariat? They'll be able to help you to make sure that you got your money into your wallet. Thank you very much, Get Cash. We appreciate that. It's the first time that as ICAZ we give people cash during winter school. Ladies and gentlemen, to start the proceedings tonight, it will start with the Honorable President of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Zimbabwe. So tonight I want to welcome the President of ICAZ, Mr. Roichi Manikire, to come forward to present his welcome address.
Saviors, thank you very much, and thank you to you all. I think it's always a pleasure and a privilege to have this one day or this one event in the calendar where we all get to meet as members like this. Also, special welcome has already been mentioned for our Presidium, our council members, the CEO, past presidents, our council members, and various other people, our speakers, our sponsors. So I will not dwell a lot on that, but really just to acknowledge that it takes a lot of people to put together what we have here today. And it takes a special kind of person as well to come and enjoy and have fun with us as colleagues at winter school. One thing I've noticed about winter school, and that I would just like to demonstrate right now, is how we are changing as an institute. I would like anyone here who's been a member of the institute for more than 10 years to put their hands up. Okay, it's more than 10 years, less than 10 years. And from where I can see, thank you very much, you'll probably find that the less than 10 years is greater than the more than 10 years. And what is special about that is, as a country, it takes a new leader and a new demographic to move the country forward. And as we talk about moving, taking responsibility for Zimbabwe's future, it's important to recognize that even we as an institute are changing in the way that we are constituted, and that there's a greater responsibility on our new members to take this institute forward. So as I welcome you here today, I think it's encouraging for me to see, this change that is taking place and to see new faces. It's also good to see the old faces that, we've become accustomed to, people that we've all known to become, we all love, and who've contributed a lot to the institute, and some of those have been recognized. But really what I want to leave you with in terms of the welcome that I'm giving you today is change is something that is coming upon us as an institute, and I'm encouraged to see that a lot of you here represented are people who are coming in. Change is something that is coming upon us. Discussions that we'll have, I think there's a new spirit to it. So I welcome you all. I hope you will have fun. I hope you will make new friends, and that you will make business relationships as well as friendships. But above all, that you live with a sense of purpose and destiny, that we as the Chartered Accountants in Zimbabwe are here to make a difference. We're here to, not just to say we came to exist, but we're here to say accountants in Zimbabwe are here to make a difference. We're here to, not just to say we came to exist, but we're here to say accountants in Zimbabwe are here to make a difference. We're here to, not just to...
Thank you, Mr. President, for a brief speech, and already it's inspiring. See, leaders are always there to inspire you to go and achieve. Thank you very much, and we are so proud of your tenure of leadership, and this is how We're going to be ending it, Mr. President. We'll be ending it in Chove. Right, ladies and gentlemen, without further delaying you, we want to really move in and talk about the main theme of this winter school. Firstly, I would want to just advise the members that Mr. Busisa Moyo, who was supposed to be speaking, was taken ill this week. So it's quite sad news. So we wish him well, that he will be recovering, and we will be having him for future events. But this will not obviously make us not talk about it. So to really cover this topic, we have among us tonight Mr. Takunda Mugaga, the CEO for ZNCC. He has been prepared very well tonight to speak about taking ownership of our Zimbabwe, the future of our children. So, ladies and gentlemen, at this moment in time, I would want you to welcome Mr. Mugaga to come straight to the stage and present his presentation. Just a brief history on Christopher T. Mugaga as he comes up. There's something special about him. Just look at him. On the day he was born, he was not alone. He had other two boys, so there were three of them on the day he was born. That's very special, isn't it? And more special, he's a Christian, so that makes him special. Three boys and he's a Christian, he loves God. You know, Christopher has got BSc Honors in Economics from UZ, and a Masters in Finance and Investments from National University of Science and Technology, and also a postgrad qualification in Treasury Management, Investment Analysis and Portfolio Management, Risk Management, and Leadership, Creators of Africa, Reform Institute, RIA, and currently is studying Masters in Strategic Management and Corporate Governance with MSU, and is the CEO of ZNCC, and previously was with the Econometer Global Capital, a regional research based in South Africa. So he's not just a simple guy, he's really a special guy, which we believe he should be able to give justice to this very special topic, which is our theme. Say, over to you.
I'm not sure when he said something special about him, what he really meant, but I'm sure he meant that I'm a triplet. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. All protocol observed. I think you appreciate that in Africa, Zimbabwe is one of the few countries where if you go to a meeting of this sort and you overcome, or you rather overlook the issue of protocol, it's synonymous to being treasonous. So let me say all protocol observed. Yes. My task, my boss, technically Busisa is my boss, because coming from Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce and also Confederation of Zimbabwe Industry, we are one body, that's private sector representatives. So I will play a key role. I'm sure talking about the theme means you have to step up so that everything which we even come after this should be living to the billing. So if I'm not to do justice to the theme, you have to blame me before even I take my seat. But I want to take this opportunity to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for inviting me also. It could be my first time to speak before a room of accountants mostly. But it's always a pleasure when we have chance and opportunity to meet like we did as we move towards our presentation. Since my presentation will be also on my laptop, my screens are opposite, so I will maybe request for my laptop. As I move on, let me give you a joke first. You know, jokes are important because it's a bit tense here. Most of you know it's not easy to stand before people. Let me give you this joke. The morality of the joke is more important than the joke itself. Let me say this. Once upon a time, there were two gentlemen who were in an aeroplane. They were seated next to each other. That is, a white guy and a black dude. A white man was with a tamed monkey. Monkey in Shona, it's soko, isn't it? Yes. And a black man had bananas, fruits. So it happened that in a short space of a moment, a black man left his seat to go to the ablution. On coming back, guess what he found out? His bananas were eaten because he'd left them with the white dude next to him. And he had to ask the white guy and said, my brother, can you help me out? What happened to my bananas? The white man said, it's really bad what he said, and I don't think anyone here will smile at that. He said, no, your brother had eaten the bananas. And I think you agree with me that it was quite very distasteful. In a short space of a moment, a white guy also left to the ablution. On coming back, guess what he got, or he realized? The bananas were eaten. I mean, the monkey was dead. And he had to ask the fellow next door to say, what happened? Asking the black man. And you know what the black man said? He said, don't worry, it's a family affair. So sometimes, if it's a family affair, what will you do if you're a white guy there? So when we are together here, let's be one family. Yes, my topic is not really difficult, I'm sure, but it's difficult in the sense that if there is to be unanimity after the presentation, then it's a problem. But taking ownership of our Zimbabwe's future, I think in a world or in a country where we know the liquidity challenge, which even the predecessor, someone who came here, was talking about, the world of bond notes, I think it's an issue which is tending to become quite very emotive. Every day when bond notes are talked about, the next emotion is to go to the bank and withdraw your last dollar. Issue of prices or even price of commodities, being minerals, agricultural commodities going down. How do we take ownership of our future as Zimbabwe in a world where we don't own our currency? All these are questions possibly one will be asking as we move on. So I want to believe by the end of my presentation, each and every one of us will have a very, can I say, an energetic perspective of what could be the case. Yes, I will move on to my next slide. Don't read, I'll read for you. Because it doesn't make sense for you to focus much on that. Let me start by saying here, contrary to the debate, and it's a debate in the media, I think you hear about it every day. It's tired, indeed very tiresome claims of corrupt individuals. I think you agree there are individuals who are corrupt, and since independence we had cases of corruption they are still talked about now. We have to agree that there is no quick fix to Zimbabwe's economic crisis, only a long, hard slog. We can't wake up one day and say, this challenge, we are going to solve liquidity crisis by bringing bond notes. We are going to solve the challenge of possibly the graduates who cannot be relevant in this industry by building new universities. Those are not the issues. Supposedly, as I move forward, we'll also see what are the issues. Zimbabwe's current economic crisis, which is true, is the second worst since independence. And after the hyperinflationary meltdown, the economy generally, if you analyze it, underperformed for much of the last 50 years, not necessarily 36 years. If one could look at it, yes, I think some people, if you really look at the economic growth in Zimbabwe generally, it had not been quite very beautiful. It was not beautiful. Yes, let's just have an overview of what's happening there. If you look at the sub-Saharan economic growth, the trends as you are seeing on my graphs there, generally we realize that between 2000 and 2014, emerging and developing Asia, I think China will come to mind, India will come to mind, it had outpaced any other region in terms of growth. Sub-Saharan Africa, which is made up of almost 44 countries from somewhere down North Africa, 5.6%, which had not been an easy figure to come across, especially in Zimbabwe, knowing very well that we only experienced a false sense of growth post-dollarization, 2009, 10, 11, economy growing to almost 11%. But after that, 2012, you could see there was a serious decline in the economy. In other parts of the world, you see advanced economies possibly could be after effects of even the financial crisis 2007, 2008. Most of Europe had been feeling the effects of that. What am I trying to say here in my background here? Can you see the strong technological advances I'm seeing Chmanikire and some other guys from telemobile industry? To talk of future without really talking about...
What am I trying to say here in my background here?
There is certainly a...
Can you see the strong technological advances I'm
the
seeing?
propensity or the room to communicate and economic growth. As we move forward, possibly you'll see what's happening. In my presentation, you can see the world growth in terms of technological advance versus sub-Saharan Africa. There is a gap, but sub-Saharan Africa had seen a significant growth in terms of especially mobile subscriptions, cellular subscriptions. In Zimbabwe, it's not long back, 2006, if you were seen with a cell phone, I think it was a sign of prestige, isn't it? Today, most people, they don't look at a phone. Maybe they look at the brand, I'm not sure, but not a phone itself. Yes, background here. Can you look at FDI in sub-Saharan Africa? Generally, the growth is 400% since 2000. Outlook. Can you see FDI given by the blue color? The red, official development assistance. For Zimbabwe, you realize that last year we had foreign direct investment rate of around about 545 million, which was eclipsed even by the diaspora remittances. Could it be that people who want to invest in Zimbabwe, corporates, they are shunning, or more people would rather send money home, the Zimbabweans who had left, than companies wanting to invest here? Because if diaspora remittances are contributing almost 1 billion, diaspora remittances actually is the second largest source of liquidity in this economy after export receipts. And FDI has not been quite very forthcoming for different reasons. Possibly as I move forward with my presentation, we'll see what could be the possible reasons why it's difficult sometimes just to talk of taking the future or taking care of the future without looking at the threats to the growth of that economy. What am I saying here? Can you see the sub-Saharan export growth since 2000? So when we talk about internalization, when we talk of internal, or can we say, when you talk of the need to determine your direction as a country, also understand that we are a very small unit of what the world is like. If sub-Saharan Africa with almost 44 countries could contribute almost 2%, 2.25% to export growth, you can actually see that we need the outside world even more than sub-Saharan Africa. So to talk about taking care of our future without also looking at factors like, do we need the West, do we need the East, do we need Asia? All these things, we need to look at them. Zambia, I always try to compare with Zambia. Can you see Zambia's share of exports between 1990 and 2014 to the world? We are looking at 0.0 something. Even if Zambia is the second largest copper producer in the world after DRC, and copper constitutes almost 80% of their budget and export receipts, but Zambia's export share to the world, or market share for Zambia, is still below 1%. Zimbabwe is not following the South Saharan trend. Can you see what is happening to Zimbabwe? Zimbabwe's exports as a share of global exports. The picture is not as good as it could be, which means if that trend is to be maintained, definitely to drive this economy, it's a gargantuan job, which will take gargantuan appetite to achieve. Can someone say that? So it's not a joke. Also, when the central bank is saying, no, look, we are going to increase export receipts through bond notes. If $200 million worth of bond notes are to increase exports, to what extent can they change the shape of that trend? All those things, we need to look at them. You know, the bigger picture of where we are going as a nation. There's also one area which I know most people will not agree with me, but I'm very straight to say normally an economy which is open is better than a closed economy. One challenge we've been having as a country is every time we suffer the heat of competition from foreign goods, we try to either close the border. I'd seen my brother from Minister of Industry here. I think we will have time to discuss more and more on this. There are industries or there are companies we need to protect in Zimbabwe. can I say, not necessarily to protect, but to support. Because the moment you want to protect a permanent infant, a child who doesn't grow, there is a challenge. So I think there is need for thorough research to solve such anomalies. One challenge I always say, which we suffer as a country, is post 1998-99, when Zimbabwe took land on the land reform. After taking the land, the same white owners of land were the same owners of manufacturing companies of the industry. So when you took the land and forgot to take the industry same time, the industry died, because the shareholders were the same people. Then next time we go and try to introduce a policy like a facility, a fund to capacitate the industry, it doesn't grow because the shareholding is already distorted. How would we be losing resources through that? So the issue of value chain is one area we also try to look at and say, look, before you even protect, understand the value chain. Who is owning a manufacturing? If almost 60% of Zimbabwe's manufacturing companies are agro-processing related, what it means is the relationship between land reform and our manufacturing sector, it can't be underestimated by any standards, can I say. So what am I showing on my graph here? Can you see the income per capita on average for countries which had closed on the extreme right small graph? The more you close, the lower your income per capita, you see. Open economies naturally. But how open should an economy be open? Maybe it's one thing we'll also look at as I move with my presentation. But generally you can see the moment we try to close the borders also, it can have its costs. But at the same time, there are some imports which might look also unnecessary, like Zimbabwe importing toothpicks to a tune of not less than 2 million for the first half of 2016. Tissues, you ask yourself, are we really running out of wood? These are issues. Research shows that openness tends to affect economic growth positively. Is there a link between openness and growth? Based on the survey which we did of the more recent empirical and theoretical literature, we believe that the answer is yes. Nearly all empirical analysis confirms to the fact that whenever borders are open, possibility or chances of growth are high. Growth comes more when you're open. Growth comes when you don't put controls. The moment you put controls, there are a lot of tombstones in this country as a result of trying to control. I think 2005, National Income and Pricing Commission was set. This is the reason why even if we go to our brothers at Ministry of Industry and Commerce, we say when we are coming up with a National Competitiveness Commission, please, it's not a product of the National Income and Pricing Commission. There should never be a relationship. The moment you say we are now having a National Competitiveness Commission being built from that NIPC, that one was a devilish body for sure. Because most of the companies which cannot even open today are a result of price slash prices. We were defying the dynamics of the market forces of demand and supply. And sometimes even up to date, we still believe we need to control even capital. For bankers, sometimes if you say maximum withdrawal is 200, it does not necessarily mean there will be no externalization. It could mean something different. Yes, can you see something about Zimbabwe here? Great differences in tariffs within sub-Saharan. It's unfortunate, my angle, Zimbabwe somewhere, I think, you know. I can see it from a distance, somewhere here. The tariff levels in Zimbabwe, on average, they are very high as compared to most countries in the region, which means our appetite to close is still quite very high. But what had made some of the goods or products, the rampant presence of such products in our markets, is smuggling. Smuggling is a reality in Zimbabwe, but some people are still not looking at it seriously. The moment we put policies even to say we are restricting imports and corruption is too intact like we have, what you are just doing is to create a better haven for smuggling. And you will not be solving a problem rather. What you are just doing is to suffocate Zimura more because it used to put duty on the goods coming through the open borders. But now they are being smuggled. One area which is quite very worrisome, and we can't really talk about our future without looking at this elephant in the room, the issue of roadblocks. Yeah? People think it's not part of business. Roadblocks, they tend to increase trading costs. Can you look at this graph? One country which is known for those who had gone to Mali, Some of the police will actually be standing ambushed in a bush waiting for you. Come out of the bush, you are arrested over speeding, something. So can you see the trend of number of roadblocks per every 100 kilometers? It's for every what? 100 kilometers. As of December 2015, there were still at least 20 roadblocks between Beit Bridge, that is the border of Zimbabwe and South Africa, and the resort town of Victoria Falls, which is where we are today. This implies 2.5 roadblocks every 100 kilometers, but there's been an increase of late. I think now they are around 3.5 to 4 roadblocks. And according to ZimInt, December 24, 2015, they were saying roadblocks are a potential eyesore to Zim tourism. It's true if you're a tourist and you're driving, maybe you're not good in English, but you're a tourist. Because tourism knows no what? Language. But the moment there is, police will always stop you. And it's a challenge for tourism. It's a challenge even for perception for our country. Yes, indeed, in terms of trade, Sub-Saharan Africa, can you see Sub-Saharan Africa, 17.3% trade between our countries. You look at Asia, EU, 63 point. So there's still not much relationship within Africa or within Sub-Saharan Africa. We are not as close as we think. For Zimbabwe, I think one challenge we are having, we tend to become a cash-to economy to countries like South Africa especially, where for every dollar you have, 60 cents will end up somewhere in Gauteng. And I think that's one anomaly which needs to be corrected for sure. Let me say the numbers tell the story, yes. Income per head is no higher today than in the mid-1960s. We are not progressing on that. We have created a mere 100,000 new formal sector jobs since 1980, during which time the population has doubled. Today, 1 person in 15 is a formal sector job compared to 1 in 1980. When I did an analysis of the number of, for example, civil sector, because government expenditure is one stubborn thing in this country. Can you imagine, since we dollarized from 2009 to date, government expenditure had trebled from almost 900 million to more than 3 billion today. But you look at government revenue, it's not growing. Who is funding that appetite? So as private sector, including the Chartered Account, the ICAZ, it's our time to go even to the leaders, politicians, and tell them, please, can you control the expenditure? Because in this room, anytime we continue trying to talk about solving economic challenges without curbing our unbridled appetite, it can only be funders or out of funders and what? Wishful thinking, isn't it? We can't achieve it. Figures are not good here. In 1980, a quarter of former employees had jobs in the public sector. Today, it is about half. 2/3 of the population, that is 75%, they are still based in rural areas. Although when you walk around our towns, we think everyone had come to the cities. I think most people will think that. In 1960, income per head was 73% of the sub-Saharan average. Today, that figure is close to 40%. For every 24 citizens in Zimbabwe, 1 is a civil servant. For South Africa, it's about for every 1,200. For UK, we are talking of more than 13,000. 1 is a civil servant. So you can see the civil sector to GDP is just unsustainable. One here can argue and say, but you cannot necessarily conclude to say that because there's no private sector to neutralize that number. But why is it that we don't have a private sector? Government should not play a bigger role in an economy if you are to grow. The moment you have a case where government is the major employer in a country, it's not going to work. Generally, income per head, sub-Saharan Africa and Zimbabwe. Can you see the average for sub-Saharan Africa generally? From 1960 up to date, it's certainly above the Zimbabwe rate. I will not waste time on this. From 2009, you will see that dollarization sparked strong growth, averaging 9% until 2012. It has since crawled to a less than 1%. Per capita incomes have declined in 2015 and will likely fall further this year, which is 2016. You can actually see between 1998 and 2008, what you are seeing there. This is average, remember, income per head from 1965. The picture has not been quite rose. This is one thing we always say, even if we meet the Minister of Finance, he knows, we say, it's most in the room, most of us here, we know. The claim of 1% GDP growth in 2015 is, to put it politely, fanciful. It is not really true. while the projected growth of 2.7 this year depends on much better rainfall than is being forecast, as well as far cheaper electricity than seems probable. But you still realize that is our major problem as a country, the absence of rainfall. Are you aware that to produce maize, you need an average of about 250 millimeters of rainfall? Even during the drought years, Zimbabwe never received rainfall below 250 millimeters. So you ask yourself, is it rainfall or is poor planning or poor infrastructure? Yeah, so we need to have a bigger picture of that. I think the problem with Zimbabweans, we don't really become honest to each other when we talk of our challenges. But the only way you can take off your future is not to beat about the bush sometimes, to be nicer to each other. We need to look at these issues. And they affect accountants also. In the greater scheme of things, minimal growth of this kind claimed by the government, it matters little. We will not talk about 2.7 growth because it's not really practical. More important is the yawning gap between the never realistic Zim asset projections and those in the last 2015 budget strategy paper. For those who had seen it, growth is difficult at the moment. What we need to do is to accept that technically Zimbabwe is in a recession. But the moment what is happening is the informal jobs which had grown in this country, we had swept a lot of unemployment under the carpet, defining it as informal employment. But this informal person doesn't pay tax, they don't open a bank account. The only surge in bank accounts being opened for the past week is because companies can no longer pay you cash. They can only put through the bank, and you fight your own war to get that man. You see? Unwilling to face facts. What am I saying here? Sadly, in the light of the preponderance of downside risk over the next few years, even the budget paper's greater realism than Zim asset and the public statements by minister could turn out to be very optimistic. We had realized that even IMF sometimes is too optimistic than we see when we are on the ground here. Growth has been difficult. Growth estimates per annum, you can see from the blue line, the Zim asset projections are what you are seeing there. I think it would be very unfair here to talk about whatever without looking at Zim asset because it's our anchor document. We have to recognize it's our document. But it's also fair to interrogate it. But we can't ignore it. These are the growth projections according to Zim asset. The budget, according to the national budget. My problem is the projections, the estimates we had put between the Zim asset and budget are different. Budget will tell you we will grow by 2.7%. On Zim asset, it's about 80%. There is a challenge there. But we also have our own estimates, which I'm saying we are technically in a recession because growth is difficult to come by. It's very evasive. What am I saying when I say context? Growth has slowed both globally and regionally, and is forecast to remain below potential for the next few years. World trade growth will remain sluggish, while few analysts, as we see, anticipate a sustained uptick in commodity prices. Commodity prices, you go to Nigeria, I think you know Nigeria, oil prices, the country has been facing much pressure than ever before since the last 20 years as oil prices have gone down. One characteristic of the Nigerian government is to try to control even the currency, the naira. Just 2 months ago, they put a naira at 200 naira to US dollar. When Nigerians, you know them very well, they will go and define their own rate in the black market. And the country ran serious challenges which were running here. Foreign exchange shortages, they couldn't import even salt because there's no forex after intervening. So you can see the pitfalls of managing currency or managing directly command economy. Even then, the commodity price recovery will be modest, not just because of China's slowdown. China's growth had moved sub-double digit to around 7-8%. And you know China is one of the serious consumers of commodities. But as China economy is not moving forward, we had felt the impact. Export-led industrialization. The Asian economic miracles of the late 20th and early 20th centuries were driven by industrialization. The question now is industrialization, can we still achieve it the way we achieved it in the 80s? 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you talk of your Zisco stews, you talk of your butter shoe company. Today, how wise is it for us to spend all resources or clamor every day to say, can we just wake up from the dead? New Zim stew. You go to UK, the equivalent of New Zim stew, of Zisco stew, Tata, It's moving. Commodity prices are down. China is not having appetite anymore for steel. But you still want to put that $350 million to revive Zisco. Sometimes leave that. Let's embrace a new economy. What is that new economy? We are not talking of ICT today. Can we move on with the old economy? Now with the kind of economy you are having, it's a characteristic of what could be a model economy. What was Zisco steel is now 20 steel companies. What was Bata shoe companies are 30 shoe manufacturers. And normally when that is the case, the propensity for them to operate in forma is very high with that environment. I'll not spend time on this. I want to manage time. So forgive me if I'm to jump some slides. Deindustrialization, I think, is a reality. Unemployment, with the loss of manufacturing as a growth engine for employment, as was the case in Asia, there's a growing arm of underemployed and unemployed youth, many of whom are well educated. That's what makes our country a bit. As we are seated in this room, we also need to interrogate our strategies as companies. Can we really get those rather educated but underemployed individuals at cheaper rate? Will it be abuse of jobs or rather of labor? If it is not, how do we move forward? Because we will lose a serious potential demographic dividend of qualified people who cannot get a job. You know, for every 5 graduates in Zimbabwe who had finished 10 years ago, possibly 3.5 had never been at a formal job. So as our presentations come through this conference, I think it's important to talk into all those issues. How do we solve that? Yes, let me just summarize 5 unsustainables. There could be most unsustainables according to people in the room. But let me say, if there are things we need to solve in this country to move forward, if you are to take care of the future we are talking about, or talk ownership of that future, one of them is the exchange rate and balance of payments. I remember I was talking to one of my colleagues, friend, Verecha is here, I'm sure. We talked about whether Zimbabwe should continue using a US dollar or discard it for the rand. I think, or even to print our own currency again. Is it possible? These are questions. The external debt, it's a reality. The issue of consumption savings imbalance, I think I gave a picture of how we are consuming without saving. And the infrastructure deficit. I would be surprised if there was much disagreement with my 5 unsustainables. Though some would rightly criticize my omission of the also unsustainable deepening social crisis. Because it's unsustainable when you see people always, tomorrow is demo, tomorrow you're not sure whether it's work or we need to be home. And it's an unsustainable. I think we should be my 6th one. You see? There will, however, be substantial disagreement at economic and political level over measures for resolving them. But as long as those measures are still ugly as they are, you realize even if you are to discover a currency from heaven in quotes, that currency will not live to see another day because you are skating serious issues. Conventional wisdom. The contemporary conventional wisdom is the wrong word here, yes, is that the problems can and will be solved by a cocktail of measures, some of which will make matters worse rather than better. Let me just talk, I don't know, maybe someone will help me. A cocktail of measures, we are very clear to say there's nothing wrong sometimes with bond notes, but there's everything wrong with trying to put a bond note to someone who doesn't understand it. Do you know some policies are not bad, but they are bad until you realize you proffer them to wrong people or at the wrong time. 200 million worth of bond notes, I think possibly we always ask to say, if you are saying these bond notes are there to incentivize exporters, the first question I will always ask as an individual is, why are you putting them in denominations to say $5, $1, 20? You can just make a certificate of deposit, put it into an exporter's account, isn't it? That's an incentive. But the moment you dilly-dally without being clear on the policy issues, it creates its challenges. And maybe one area which is also quite very worrisome on the bond notes, I feel I need to talk about this. It's important. Normally a bond facility, naturally everyone here, I want to believe, a bond can be perpetual. It can have a tenure. So it means if it's 2 years, which is not yet clear, there's no term sheet I had seen. Maybe some of you had seen a term sheet for that bond facility. Will I be able to redeem my US dollar if I want to, at its maturity, which is the end? And at what cost is that bond facility 200 million coming? Rumors are saying 5%. If it's 5%, and they are printing cost of that bond facility, the transport cost to transport it, I'm sure it's not going to be printed in Harar. Effectively, that rate will be about 8 to 10% cost for that bond. So if you say it's $1 US for that bond facility with this cost I given, can't you see the exchange rate already distorted? So if a black market arises tomorrow, will you be shocked? I think these are questions we don't really interrogate as individuals also. If you say solutions to me, apparently the debt crisis will be solved by borrowing even more. Because it's difficult, I tell you. By borrowing even more, China normally doesn't offer official development assistance and others for projects. From Algeria, can you pay arrears from them? There's rumor, but I don't think they'll give us money for clearance of arrears. NASA, I think it's one also missing. I'm sure if there's a NASA person here, but it's one institution we need to look at and see how it can add value to us without confusing most people. As industry, we always talk about NASA because we're an interested party. Sometimes you hear a rumor that NASA is going to bail out TLSO or something is going to happen. If government is to buy Kotko, is it going to use money from a fund or they are going to get money from a line of credit? These are questions which need to be clear. Debt distress. Earlier this year, the IMF, whose numbers always I stress are unreliable at times when they look at Zimbabwe, estimated Zimbabwe's debt GDP ratio in 2015, including private sector debt, at 107%, which we believe is way above that. You know why sometimes it's difficult? We always talk to IMF on these figures. Sometimes they don't deny them. They always correct, but it takes them time to finally correct. But for those who follow the staff monitored program, there's what we call the structural benchmarks and the quantitative. One of the benchmarks Zimbabwe had managed to meet is the primary cash balance. In simpler terms, it could also be a case of managing your accounts to say, if it's salaries you are paying in time, your expenditures. But if the salaries owing bonus for last year and they are saying there's primary cash balance, you get a tick. Naturally, IMF has to explain, and it's not clear on that. And issues to do with labor laws, I think most of you are in business here. Labor laws in Zimbabwe are still very harsh. To fire any worker, it's rather better to pay someone a lower wage than to attempt to chase away someone even for underperforming. Because you lose the whole balance sheet trying to retrench. Yeah? On unsustainable burden, whatever the precise number, it is common cause outside government that the debt burden is unsustainable. I think you had seen debates on whether it's 8 billion external debt or it's 10 billion. Especially when rapidly growing domestic debt, including corporates and households, is factored in. The issue of treasury bills, bankers, they always also want to, we always say, the issue of treasury bills, we need to know the profile of T-bills in this market, their maturities. If you're asking how many T-bills have been issued so far, possibly no one will raise his hand in this room to say, even those who could be issuing them sometimes, they are not sure. So if they are not sure about this, we really need to sit down and talk. Because once you have a T-bill like this, next time we also have an RTGS balance in banks, which most people trust. There's no money. It's like burning a Zim dollar against an RTGS. It's not money. There's nothing. If you are to liquidate that, you will realize those balances of RTGS are not really supported. What am I saying when I say mortgage in the future? Servicing and repaying loans and contractor credits for infrastructure and industrial projects will absorb a large and growing chunk of future exports. Arrears is part of the solution. Please, I chose to talk about solutions, but I need to be honest on how easy it is. Arrears clearance is part of the solution, but as in Zimbabwe's case, where clearance takes the form of debt restructuring, not debt reduction. Total debt will continue to rise from 186% of exports in 2011. This is official. Possibly to exceed even 600% by the time we reach 2018. The reason why I mentioned 2019, the problem with Zimbabwe, it has got a political cycle. After every 2.5 years, Zimbabweans are already in an election mode. So what it means is the propensity even to have pressure to deal with these issues, it tends higher 2.5 to 2 years before an election. When you look at the debt versus exports, we will not spend time on this. Look at the export graph. It's almost a flat. Debt had been growing up. So this will tell you that it's not a walk in the park. when we talk of challenges, to say, for example, there's a problem that we cannot necessarily account for 15 billion and it's put on the table, there's money from Diamond. Maybe it's not there, maybe it's just hot air. But as business, we also need to really ask, say, if it is there, what really happened to it? That's the only way you can close this gap you are seeing. Because if you don't, one day we think economy will come back to shape while this is our time, but the more we are creating challenges and getting into this deep, the more you realize that it will take another generation to even escape this multiple currents. Because they are not taking action. I know some quotas you hear about internal devaluation as part of defining our future, of taking care of our future. The mooted suggestion for tackling the balance of payments include internal devaluation, increased protectionism, export promotion, and value addition to exports via beneficiation. On export promotion, I think the governor is saying we need to promote our exports by issuing bond notes. But if you look at the most beneficial, 85% of our exports are coming from mining. You talk of ferrochrome, diamonds, gold, platinum, and maybe tobacco even. They will always export even if they don't want to. So if you say you are going to incentivize them for this, and from when are you going to incentivize? If it is from 4 May when you announce the policy, it means there's already a liability on government part to pay these incentives. And by the time you try to pay, it will be swallowed, technically. So this which I mentioned, it faces formidable obstacles. Internal devaluation to the extent required, which is 50%, is simply not feasible, either economically or politically, especially given existing levels of poverty and unemployment. It's difficult too. For the record, I think if you look at most countries like China, I simplify to say how they had grown their economies, they had gone the way of devaluation, not internal devaluation. You look at the price of their currency. China for years, I think you know very well that as it was growing double digit, it was blamed by the world, especially USA, for creating an unfair advantage to an extent that it was referred to as a currency manipulator. Most of the exports from China were demanded in USA because they were cheaper there because of the currency exchange rate. But what makes the China case different from ours is, even though USA was suffering through China's advantage, what was happening is China was the biggest consumer of treasury bonds, especially from USA. So naturally, you will see China was financing the capital account of USA, which made it possible for USA even to print one day or two to do what they want or to sustain the value of the currency there. I will not spend time on internal devaluation. I'm trying to limit time here. Options. It may be that Zimbabwe will be rescued by a large US dollar devaluation, but this is unlikely in the near to medium term. I think you know US dollar has been strengthening. If not, then at some point we will have to seek a new and different currency peg, which is not US dollar. I think we agree. Of course, I was talking to most South Africans here. You realize they even tell you to try to book a hotel, to pay $100 for a hotel. That's an arm and a leg. But in Zimbabwe, even if you want to buy tomatoes, you need to pay US dollar. It's a high-cost economy. But the problem is not only high cost, it's a low productive or low value. In USA, if you go, yes, you pay 100, you pay 150 for your hotel. But it's also a high-value economy. Productivity levels are patched up. For us, we are using US dollar, but productivity levels are at the trough. There's no activity in the economy. A US dollar economy, and sometimes you see smoke in the factories. It's not necessarily smoke, but it's Zepnex being manufactured. So it's difficult. Is it? So, will I myself say mission impossible? I'm not really advocating for a return to the Zim dollar. But do you know it's an aside, but I'm just thinking, I was telling someone. Do you know there's a settlement risk where government debt is so high to the extent that even if you supply to hospitals, government hospitals, they can't pay you because there's no money. But one day I was saying, what if they print a Zim dollar and just increase inflation and pay those people and start afresh? I know someone is wondering, what am I saying? But it's difficult with what we're having now. Merely stating the unpalatable truth that mission impossible promise of internal or fiscal devaluation is contradicted by taxes and policies that make it more expensive to do business are no answer. I think if you had to talk about, for instance, an import tax 3% for every good coming into the country is a way of devaluing. Some will say we are already overtaxed. We don't want to pay Zimbra already because we feel we are burdened. It would be unfair to sit down before I talk of the informal economy because it's a reality in Zimbabwe. Government and the advisors, of course, IMF, they seem to believe that the socio-political dimension of unemployment, stagnation, and poverty can be swept under the informal economy carpet. But this is an option that is past its expiry date. We always talk even to Minister of Small and Medium Enterprise. When they say they are supporting SMEs, sometimes it's the informal guys who are not paying tax they want to propel. An informal business, you can't support it. These are survivalist entrepreneurs. Let's come up with policies to remove those people in the street and go back, because space in factories is still very vacant. So why we're afraid of going back there and do something? Even doing those informal markets. We can't, because we know we want to follow the market. Everyone wants to sell bananas, but no one wants to go to the farm. That's the problem we are having now. Spend less, save more. Time is against discussion of the remaining sustainables. I knew it was going to be long. But because it is completely ignored by the policymakers, let me raise the urgent necessity of rebalancing consumption, savings, and investment in the Zimbabwean economy. Big spenders. Yes. Since dollarization, consumption spending has averaged 112% of GDP, and savings have been negative. Investment is only 16%. Remember, investment official 5.5 million versus 13 trillion, 14 trillion GDP. So investment is only 16%, enough to sustain GDP growth of 3% to 4%. If you are to look at those figures, you can't dream of a GDP growth beyond these figures, given the realities we have. If you are to stretch, in fact. Consumption-led growth, 90% of the increase in domestic consumption has been consumption spending. 56% of that by the private sector and 44% by government, whose current spending is more than tripled. I think I spoke about this. I will not spend time on this. Domestic savings are better. Furthermore, the politicians seem oblivious. It's true, I'm talking of politicians. To the evidence that countries that rely more on domestic than foreign capital have been more successful in sustaining growth over time. I think we had elevated the role of foreign direct investment to the extent that if Dangote is not sure whether to come back again to Zimbabwe, we feel like we are doomed. But it's not true. Countries mostly, when they grow through savings. Domestic savings, not FDI as thought of in most circles. FDI is far in a way the preferred vehicle of foreign capital, but is motivated by market size and growth, resource endowments, and geography rather than policy. So FDI might not necessarily be the issue. What are we saying here? I'm almost concluding. My presentation was long, I tell you. Structural regression. Zimbabwe is headed in the reverse direction at the moment in terms of deindustrialization. And the shift from a modern formal economy to an increasing low technology, low productivity informal one. We don't need an informal economy. I think we need to agree on that. Fatter flows. I cannot think of a successful economy that is developed purely on foreign capital and with a hugely overvalued exchange rate. Someone is saying, why can't we join a rand monetary union? Is it easy? We really need to negotiate. But I think it's possible because US dollar, honestly, it's an anti-developmental currency. For Zimbabwe to grow with a strong economy, with a strong currency like that, is almost impossible. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me take advantage of this and conclude. But one thing before I leave the floor, let me say this in terms of direction. Sometimes when figures are not promising, let me tell you a story about a man who is considered the most influential man for the past century. Albert Einstein. I know everyone here possibly know, a quintessential typical academic, but professor. It said he was in a bus one time. It's a true story, it's not a joke. While he's in a bus, he lost his ticket. But he was already a popular, typical scientist in USA. So when he lost his ticket, the conductor came and said, Professor Einstein, I'm seeing you're troubled looking for a ticket. What's wrong? And he said, I can't see my ticket. You know, when years back then, you would be given a ticket when you get into a bus. So the conductor left him, and coming back 4 or 5 minutes, he sees Einstein is still down the rail of a bus looking for his ticket. And the conductor said, no, don't worry, professor. Who doesn't know you? We will not cheat your way into the bus because of this little money. Relax, you don't care about the what? The ticket. But he then raised his head and said, please, don't worry. My problem is not who I am. My challenge is the ticket I'm looking for. That's where my destination is written. So I don't know where I'm going. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for him. Thank you, sir. That was quite inspiring. Definitely, you have given us a platform to digest. Very solid foundation for the other speakers to pick it from there, and for us to have a powerful debate on Saturday. Thank you, sir. We just want to appreciate you this evening. I want to call Hope Shibanda to come and present a token of appreciation to our speaker. Thank you very much, sir. Just for you to remember us. Thank you, sir. Well, this was quite interesting. I know we learned the truths about our economy. I had some bit of stress because of what he was sharing. But understand, when you know the truth will set you free. So we know the truth about our economy, so we should be free to find ways of getting out of, I don't know whether I call it messy or some tough challenges we're facing. So thank you very much, sir. You've shown really some deep research, some great analysis, great understanding of the economy, obviously what's causing all the problems we have, and that should be good for us as we go to find ways of getting out of this. You spoke about Zeb snakes. By the way, I work for INSCO. We manufacture Zeb snakes. And it's real manufacturing, by the way. All right. Just to let you know also that we are streaming live on internet. So our members in the diaspora are together with us. So that's really exciting. So we expect them to give us feedback. Hopefully we'll be able to get the feedback so that we can also include it in our final paper. At this moment now, we're moving into a session. We want it to be close to members only. So would like to kindly ask those who are not members to just create some room for the members to do ICAZ business, but we want to see you tomorrow morning to join with us and have special moments with our very powerful speakers for tomorrow. So thank you very much for being with us for this time we share together. We'll be seeing you tomorrow. All members, please stay behind as we move to the next session. All right, just inform you now what we're doing next. Tonight we shall be having our AGM for the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Zimbabwe. But before that, we starting with the special presentation, basically covering operations and strategic review of our institute. So to do that tonight, I want to invite the CEO of ICAZ to come to the front to take us through the operations and strategic review for our institute. After that, we move straight into the AGM.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. We're going to present the operations review and strategic. I'm doing the operations. We'll have the financials, and then we'll have the strategic. Excuse my voice. I'm recovering from flu, but okay. Can we go on to? Oh, all right. I'll drive it from here. Okay, I'm doing this first section, the operations. As I said, there's operations, there's financial review and strategic. So for the operations, okay, membership statistics. Unfortunately, I don't have anything here. All right. Okay, you see the members, we are now at 2,000 members and scattered all over the world. Are you able to see those, the dispersion? No? You can? Okay, you're doing better than me because I can't from here. So that's the dispersion, and on the graph, the bar graph, you can see the 3 years, and we are also showing the one in orange. That is the additional members for each of the years. Right. Education. You see the ZCTA, the Zimbabwe Certificate in Theory in Accounting, pass rates for the last 4 years. Generally stable. And you also see the APC, which is the final stage, which last year was 82% and moved up to, in 2015, to 90%. So we, all right, okay. All right, VAT update. We talked to you last year regarding the VAT issue that, as you know, over the years, we were not, we were then informed that we're supposed to be charging VAT on the subscriptions. Over the years, all those years, we thought as an educational institution, we're not liable for VAT, and it seemed there was an acceptance until I think the times got tough, and I think Zimra is under pressure to look for money. All right, so what we've done is that we applied for under amnesty, and then we have also met the minister to appeal for the VAT, which has been backdated to 2009. So we have to pay from 2009 to the time that we applied to 2014, and we are engaging his team to see what can be done. Zimra, as far as they're concerned, they said that's the law, we can't do anything. If you need anything done, approach the minister, which is what we have done, and we're working on it. We had requested a revised payment terms for the arrears, which unfortunately was denied because we had been paying 20,000 a month. We had requested to reduce that to 10,000. They denied that. We did an extra billing in December 2015 for about $200 for each member, $230 for those within the country, and $200 for those outside because they don't pay VAT. And I think we've got about 30% of the members have paid that. The others are still to pay or are deciding to pay. UNISA and ZCTA. UNISA, the agency agreement was cancelled. In 2015, we tried to engage in UNISA because ICAZ was the agent for the BCOMT. They said no, and they didn't just cancel for ICAZ, they canceled for all the others. So we're no longer registering students, but those in the pipeline, we're continuing with them. The alternative ZCT arrangement with VITS through CAA is in place for both full-time and part-time. We're also talking to NAST who want to come on board. We've talked to UZ who I think there are some issues there. So we'll proceed with those who are ready and willing to move with us. Okay, the committees, APC, technical, contributing to ISB through commenting on exposure drafts. That's what we've been doing, and reviewing financial statements of listed companies. Banking and Finance subcommittee of the Accounting Procedures Committee, looking at the members are working on implementation of IFRS 9, which is expected to have a huge impact on the Accounting Procedures Committee. Also, looking at the members are working on implementation of IFRS 9, which is expected to have a huge impact on the Accounting Procedures Committee. Also, looking at the members are working on implementation of IFRS 9, which is expected to have a huge impact on the Accounting Procedures Committee. Also, looking at the members are working on implementation of IFRS 9, which is expected to have a huge impact. And tax and other legislation, talk. You can see the activities there, coordinating with Minister of Finance, ZIMRA, Insurance and Pensions Commission, IPEC, securities and other authorities. Members provide input to policymakers, and they contribute to national budget. And also quarterly we meet with ZIMRA. There's also a public sector task force, which is working on the adoption of the public sector standards. We have also instituted an online technical help desk, which was launched, where members can actually submit queries and receive quick guiding responses. Under public relations, this is what we've been doing: networking golf day, CFO forum, inaugural power walk and run, end of year networking dinner, ICAZ Old Mutual Charity Golf Day, where we raise money for charity. Let's Learn Ngatifunde Career Expo, we've been going and attending those. Cocktail with IFAC CEO and COO, which was a rare opportunity to have the International Federation of Accountants Chief Executive Officer and Chief Operating Officer in Zimbabwe, and we hosted them at Integrity House. New member welcoming dinner every 6 months. We have book donations to Masvingo and career guidance, magazines and newsletters, members outreach. There's also been a visit to the UK and SA chapter by the President and CEO. CPD, those are the CPD seminars that have been held this year. Valuations, strategies for financial sustenance, analysis of the 2016 national budget, IFRS update, tax update, indigenization, anti-money laundering, and long-form audit report. We had Minister Patrick Joao the other time, IPEX seminar, went to school in Dubai. Okay, to enhance participation of members, there are now 2 seats for diaspora members. As you are aware of the members, that total members that we have, approximately 50% are actually in the diaspora. And it only makes sense for us to increase their representation on council. So we now have 2. Previously we had 1. And we also have 2 diaspora members in the public sector task force. Okay, those are the other activities. Quarterly conference calls. We've got the UK chapter chairperson. I think you'll get a chance to say something. And also South African chapter, I think there's a representative, Australia and New Zealand. We had one with Australia which lapsed, and we are in the process of signing the one with the new merged institute. I think we would appreciate chapters if they could assist us with identifying services that would aid diaspora members. What you would like us to do for you. We're continuously trying to improve and customize membership database as better information allows for better understanding and brand visibility to strengthen the CA brand. We're doing everything we can to do that. Okay, so that's on operations. I'll hand over to Lucille for the operation. CA brand, we're doing everything we can to do that. Okay, so that's on operations. I'll hand over to Lucille for the operation. CA brand, we're doing everything we can to do that. Okay, so that's on operations. I'll hand over to Lucille for the operation. CA brand, we're doing everything.
Hello? Can you hear me? Is this thing working? Good afternoon. I'm coming to take you through the financial highlights. It's a very quick highlight of the issues that we've identified as key. All the other issues, you have the annual report and you can go through for more detail, though I will take some questions after we finish this presentation if there's anything else you feel we need to cover in more detail. Our first highlight, we've just summarized the issues that are key to the Institute, which is the number of members, the revenue, i.e. the subscriptions. In between there's the cost base, which then leads to whether we have an income or a deficit at the end of the year, and then our utilization of cash throughout the year. The members have increased, membership has gone up, revenues has gone up. Those two I'll explain in the next slides. Unfortunately, also expenses have gone up, resulting in cash going down. This is just analyzing the revenue in different formats. And in the revenue this year, we have the extra billing, which was done in December 2015. That's 329,000 in the 1,771,000. That's making up our revenue this year. And the composition of that is that subscriptions are making up nearly 60%, education 25%, and others 15%. And in the other, we have things like the CPD income, the PR income, various training, and so on. Our ideal revenue mix for the Institute would be subscriptions making up 50%, education being 25%, and the others increasing contribution up to 25%. The next major issue for the Institute is debtors. And here we've just done a representation of, for the past 3 years, what we've invoiced, what we've managed to collect, and what is left in debtors at the end of the year. And this is after taking in the provision for that particular year. And then I've also analyzed the debtors by location so we can see where the problems are. Local members are making up 49% of the debtors balance, meaning that 51% is the non-residents. And with the non-residents, we've got a significant number in Australia and in the UK and in South Africa. There's just a detailed breakdown. And then there's a section 9%, which is other. And in there, you've got the UAE, Canada, and Zambia, which are contributing 1% each towards the debtors. Next, we're looking at the expenses, which is another key item for the Institute. We've just broken it down into the different functions, the major functions for the Institute. The admin expenses, for example, it's day-to-day telephones, legal fees, computer costs. And student services, this would be the cost for having lectures for the students, hiring the venues and the desks. Membership services, this would be CPD, PR costs, those kind of things. External public relations, this would be the subs which we need to pay to IFAC, to ICAO, to PAB. Employee costs, we know employee costs. Occupational expenses, this would be for Integrity House, the rates, electricity, repairs and maintenance. And then here I've put through a subtotal for us to see what our total expenses are before what we're terming extraordinary expenses. And these extraordinary expenses sort of within our control. So it's not completely accurate. Vision. The way we've provided this year is a bit more aggressive than in previous years. And those are the main things for the financial highlights, and we'll then take any other questions you've got at the end of the session. Next coming through will be the strategic direction.
Thanks. I'm actually going to present from down here. I want to be close to you, but also I want to see what you're seeing. I don't want to be talking and you're seeing something else on the screens. Okay, I'm just going to touch on a few slides, touching on the strategic review first, on the strategies that we set for ourselves in 2014. So it was 2014 to 2016. Oh, okay. 2014 to 2016, we had strategies that were set. We have got 9 of them. So I'm just going to talk through those and perhaps just share what we've managed to do and what we're still to do around those. The first one was enhanced services to members. I think this one is a very key one because we are quite aware and seized with the fact that we need to be able to provide a service to our members. In addition to using the ICAZ designation as members, we want to be able to derive good value from the Institute. So that was one key important one. Improve brand visibility and standing. So the brand itself, we want to make sure that we keep it at the standing, which is the preeminent body of accountants in Zimbabwe, and we want to keep it at that. Improve and maintain the quality of members to international standards. Here we are quite mindful that much as we are a ICAZ, a Zimbabwean brand, we've got members that are all over the globe now. So we need to produce members that are of an international standard who are able to service the various jurisdictions that they are operating from. Increase membership. This one is key from 2 fronts. The first one is that if we are going to be an influential body, we need to have the numbers come through. At the moment, I think you saw from the earlier presentation that we are at 2017. And when we look at this number compared to the population of Zimbabwe, I did the calculation and we're 0.01% of the population. When you look at bodies like ICAO, for instance, or SAICA, if you look at their membership in relation to their population, they translate to about 0.1%. So that's better. We need to do 10 times more in terms of increasing membership to be at the same sort of levels of membership to the bodies that I've mentioned. So influence, I think we need to be more of us to be able to be seen, to be heard. And the second bit is that the institute requires the funding. And funding, I think you saw in Lucille's slides as well that a significant chunk of the funding of the institution is from the subscriptions and no other forms of revenue. So the more we are, the more we can also share the burden of administering the institute. Improve efficiency and effectiveness of internal support systems. This is of the institute. Because we are members of the institute and we rely on the service that is provided by the institute, we want to make sure that we strengthen that support system so that they can deliver that service to us. Create a center of excellence. This one was talking to ICT and the growing trends in ICT, that we cannot afford not to have an e-platform where members are able to access resources online, they are able to e-learning, access CPDs online and things like that, and be able to tap into research and development that is found online, as opposed to perhaps the physical CPDs that we're currently having. Protect reputation of the CA brand through enhanced monitoring. So the CA brand is our biggest asset. And because it is our biggest asset, and for us to maintain or to retain its value, it means we have to protect that reputation. And we do that through monitoring the work of the CAs. So it's like a policing role, but it's an important one, so that we know, because every one of us is carrying the reputation of the brand. So that monitoring then assists in making sure that we're keeping it at the right reputation. Improve and strengthen the financial status of the institution. That goes without saying. If we are going to get the service that we want from the institute, it has to be financially sound. Increase influence of the institute in the economy and globally. So that is also related to points I raised around membership, that we need that influence to come through, and in our economy in Zimbabwe and globally, because we are now spread all over. So this was the thinking around the institute in terms of the direction and the things that we need to focus on. So you see that I will probably start repeating some of the things that have been raised either in the operations review or in the financial review, because everything that the institute is doing is to address those things. On enhancing service to members, I'll just touch a bit on what has been done and focus as well on what is to be done going forward, just to improve on that. I want to start by saying, obviously, for you to provide a service to a membership, you want to be able to know what it is that they want. So my first point there will be surveys are being carried out. I know during this winter school as well, we're going to be taking your views on what and how you feel the institute can be enabled to better serve members. So I'm also urging that you actually do complete those surveys so that we get that feedback and are able to then come up with initiatives to address some of those things. The mutual recognition agreements that we have in place, these ones are particularly important for those that are working outside the country, because they are now able to go and join another accounting body there and still become a CA of the same status and standing. So this is these are very, very important agreements that are being used by those members in the diaspora. And we have 6 of those in place. We have the online help desk. I think this, the CEO has already talked to this. I think it's all aimed at making sure that we also reach out to those that are outside and they're able to get access to the technical assistance. Locally, we do have a technical desk. We actually have, if you want a phone in, if you want to physically go to the institute and actually get some assistance, it's there. But the online one, then it makes it ease of access to that service. Support and strengthening of diaspora chapters. I think this one is a critical one as well. And the reason why we keep talking of members outside the country is because our membership right now, half are in the country and half are outside. And if we are really going to be an influential body, we cannot afford to ignore those that are outside. In fact, we cannot ignore any member at all. But more importantly, we need to rope them in, because the further you are, because of reach, it's difficult to get everyone together and participate. But there are forums and ways now to make sure that we get everybody together. So the diaspora chapters are so important because they are a means and a way to to support our members as well as to get feedback out of them. I know that we've got 2 chapter representatives in this winter school, and we'll also get to hear from them, and perhaps they will share some insights in terms of their views of how we can support them. We created more platforms for members to interact. I think we saw in the earlier presentation the social platforms that were created, the dinners, the cocktails, the power walks, the golfs, and so on. It's all aimed at getting members together. And when you get together and meet, then you tend to also share ideas. You know each other. And we know that in Zimbabwe at the moment, when we're talking of business, it's all about who you know. It's all about the networks that you have. And as a body, if we maximize on the network that we have, I think we'll be able to do much, much better than we're doing. So going forwards, I think a lot is to enhance the work that has already been done, to increase those MRAs, mentorship programs as well. I think that is probably going to come to be very critical. The president, when he came up, he asked to see those members that have been with the Institute for the past 10 years. The statistics actually show, Mr. President, that 30% of our membership actually became members in the last 5 years. So there is a significant number of younger CAs within the Institute. And we have the older CAs as well. Some are retiring or nearing retirement, and we need to tap into the knowledge that they have. So these programs will then help the younger and upcoming CAs to be able to share into the knowledge, and there is passing and transfer of knowledge. Membership cards, I know the PR committee is busy and assist with this to try and have some loyalty cards for members, so that when you go to get a service, whether it's from a gym or whether it's from a bank, there's certain discounts that you also get simply because you're a CA. So they are working on that package. Please clap hands for them. Okay, in terms of increase in influence of the Institute in the economy and globally, I think first and foremost, it's very important that we are involved in standard setting, whether it's audit and assurance, that's the IASB, or the Accounting Standards Board. We have input that we put into that through the ICAZ technical committee, so that we ensure that standards that are set also have our input in there. We have representation at IFAC, that's the International Federation of Accountants, or CEO sits there. So there is also our representation is there, and we have input into policies and standards and reviews that come from there. We also have recently signed an MOU with SIPFA, and that's a chartered accounting body that focuses on public sector finance. We want to help the public sector accountants in Zimbabwe to have a qualification to fall back, but more importantly, so that we are able to improve the level of public sector financial management. I think you're very much aware of the issues that we see coming through from the Auditor General's audit reports and so on. So our thinking is that we should exert influence through that qualification by equipping those public sector accountants to improve. We also are always involved in inputting into local policies, whether it's the new ZSC listing rules, the corporate governance code, the Companies Act that is currently being reviewed. Through our talk and other committees, we are involved in inputting into that. Going forwards, obviously, we will continue the whole process of engagement and inputting into policy formulation. We will continue to make sure that we are well represented at those international standard setting bodies, more involvement perhaps at the International Federation of Accountants body, and continuous engagement as well of our chapters to increase influence of our members in their various jurisdictions, so that it's not just influence in Zimbabwe, but wherever our members are practicing. Brand visibility standing, as well as improving and maintaining the quality of our members. What we've managed to achieve so far through the MRAs, I guess, we've maintained the MRAs with reputable bodies. So it's not just any body, any accounting body from any country, but we go through a process of actually checking, doing a due diligence on the bodies that we partner with, because we are mindful that we need to be at the same standing and preserve the quality that we have. There's been more PR events undertaken in the local market. I think that's just all for visibility of the CAZ brand. And we've also introduced a find a CA feature on our website. This one, we thought it would aid as well as we monitor CAs, because we are also aware that there are other people who call themselves CAs that when they are not. So we feel that that feature will help, whether it's employers, employment agents, to be able to check and authenticate that the person who they're taking on board is really a CA or not. We think that that will deter people who are masquerading as CAs that when they're not. Going forward, I think we intensify the stakeholder engagement activities and publicity activities just to make sure that the brand is out there in the market. And we'll enhance activities and visibility of our chapters and educate the market more about verifying the credentials of the CAs. And partnering as well with other bodies in offering professional courses to enhance our members' quality. And of course, the mentorship programs that I mentioned earlier. This one on improving and strengthening the financial status of the Institute and increasing membership, which is quite related, as well as strengthening the Secretariat. What we've managed to achieve, or what we've started on, is we're looking at alternative income streams to develop those so that we are able to lessen the burden on members as with regards subscriptions. We also, to increase membership, we also gave an amnesty for training records to encourage membership registrations. And from the slides that we saw earlier, there was quite an increase in members this year of people who took up this amnesty. There's also council reforms, which you saw in the papers that were sent out, and I think those resolutions will be tabled at the AGM. Basically, where we're putting tenures to council. So I can't serve on council forever for as long as people are voting me, but there's a prescription to the time that I can serve. And this will allow refreshment of ideas. And the fact that we're also having reserved seats for diaspora, I think it will make sure that we have their involvement and representation. And for women as well, we're looking at putting in seats for women to just ensure that divergence of ideas. All this will help us in improving the efficiency and effectiveness of our internal control systems, our council, because we are having those ideas coming through. In terms of going forwards, we are looking at the examination pathway. We will take you through some slides that are going to focus more on what we're trying to do there, but that is also aimed at increasing our members, just to improve the pathways that one can use to become a chartered accountant. The MRAs as well, just so that we serve our members. We are very mindful that we've got quite a sizable number in Namibia, quite a sizable number in Botswana, quite a sizable number in Zambia. We just want to try and see to make sure that we get everybody served and on board. Active engagement of chapters as well, including the increase of our chapters. The Center of Excellence, this one I think is a very critical one, but it's one that we haven't really done much on, where we want to create this online platform for members to be able to get access to information and knowledge and in e-learning as well. So this one will be a very critical thing, one that we need to do. Obviously, it requires resources, and therefore we appeal to members to pay up their subscriptions so that we are able to put these into such projects as this. So I think in a nutshell, that's the review of the strategic goals that were in place 2014 to 2016 and how we are going to pick up some of those going forward. Thank you very much.
Right. Am I next? Afternoon. I realize you are tiring, eh? Are you? Okay. I'll be a bit engaging so that we talk to each other here. Okay. So this morning I'll tell you a very small story. Yeah, very small. My slides, yeah, okay. My slides are quite few, so I want to increase them a bit so that I become relevant. So this old man, you know, I got picked up by a taxi driver. Old is about 86. So we were driving towards the airport. And he asked me, Makai, how old are you? And I said, okay, 2 years shy of what? 50. I say, but you are very young. But you see, the problem with Zimbabweans, we all say we are educated. But you know what, man? Are we all wise? And I said, but I think we are both educated and wise. You know what he said? He said, Zimbabweans, I can tell you we are educated, but there's one problem we have. I don't think we are wise. And he said, but I think for me, Makaya, I'm wise. I'm both wise and educated. He said, okay, let me give you a question. This is a taxi driver. He said, how many roads are in Zimbabwe? And I started counting. One, that goes Bulawayo, Harare, 1, Mutare, Harare, 2. And they said, you see, how many do you have in your head? I said about, let me estimate, at 1,000, there are about, yeah. That's why I said, you're not clever, you're not wise. There are only 2 roads. That's road and the third road. That's a joke from an old man, isn't it? Guys, I'm going to talk about pathways. Your council has been seized with so many issues, right? In fact, to ask you a question from Madam's presentation, Madam President, sorry, senior, I'm not sure who is the president here. What issue do you pick up as the major problem that is seized, or the problem that we face as an institute? There's one clear one. It's numbers, isn't it? The problem is numbers. 2,000 in 2014, we've got a problem, isn't it? And it explains why council, sometimes it stretches. It goes back to the members and say, members, please help us. The 2,000 or so that we've got, we have to go back to you and say, please fund the what? The institute. But we are quite few. We are very few to fund the level of a costly economy, like Mgaga said, isn't it? This is a costly economy. Let's accept it. Now the council is looking at ways of enhancing those numbers. Now, we looked at the current examination pathway. How does one qualify as a CA, right? It takes about 3 to 5 examinations currently. And the issue is, I'll actually flip through all these. If you can note one thing here, there is SAICA at the beginning, isn't it? And there is SAICA at the end. All those slides put together. Let me go back to the first slide. Now, since 1995, we've been on the SAICA examination cycle. The 5 exams we are talking about, okay? And of that exam, only the tax component is one that we set, right? So the majority of the issues are set by South Africans, and then they are localized for our students. Agreed. Tinashe here gets involved heavily in the setting of the examinations and in the marking of the examinations. Well done, Nkoa Tinashe. Okay, that's good. Now, we also have some members coming through MRAs where people don't sit for an exam and you become a what? A member. But there is a problem in the whole process. The CTA issue is, it's a requirement by SAICA that the whole process has to be administered by a SAICA accredited university. Unfortunately, we do not have any Zimbabwe university that is SAICA accredited. Now, the moment that comes in as a requirement, SAICA has paralyzed us. It's paralyzed the exam process because we are going to be tuned in line with what SAICA wants. Ladies and gentlemen, members here present, we are not talking about anything. We are talking about the limitations that we find with the SAICA process. And we are saying it is one source, it is one bottleneck which is causing few members coming on board, hence our lone members. The madam said we need more of us. Now, the pathways, when we discuss the pathways issue at council level, what are we looking at? We are looking at some stage, we want to 100% localize or fully localize. We don't mind even if we half localize, but we are saying possibly to do with the fact that we are dealing with SAICA which is resident outside Zimbabwe. So, strategically, one day we should localize our examinations. The other issue is, please, we should not temper around with the strong brand, the eminent brand of being what? A CAZ. Some of us who have taught at university at some time, we are known for setting very difficult examinations, isn't it? Those guys who are here, who are my former students, would know. But that's not what we are saying. We are saying we should never compromise. We should never compromise, isn't it? Right? The other objective is now the issue of membership. Members, those who go to bars like me, tell me one thing. Are you happy to be on a bar? Or it's actually good to be 4 or 5? It's good to be 4 or 5. But 4 or 5 of the same caliber, isn't it? We are mindful of that fact. Okay. Sorry. And then we can't run away from the fact that we need more revenue for your institute to have it stay afloat. So the challenge is that the current pathway, from what I've just said, the first challenge is that currently only setting the tax exempt, that is what we've got at hand, right? All others set in South Africa, CTA being offered through SAICA, accredited universities, which is quite restrictive, particularly given that we do not have a SAICA accredited university. So we are cognizant of that. We can't sit back as council and say, yeah, we have a bottleneck there, and we ignore it. Okay? Challenges with the UNISA. UNISA also is following the bandwagon, the SAICA route. You know, they dumped us at a time when we didn't have an alternative. We ran around, we secured the alternative. Okay? And then the other issues, no exemptions given for prior learning. Now, it's one issue which, when you look at the current CTA students, Anes here will confirm, it's not always the best that you talk about not having what? Exemptions for prior learning. Some would argue why give a student the exemptions. But you are seeing a situation where globally, you go to ICAZ, where you get to international organizations, they actually recognize the learning that you went through before you came on board in terms of the examination stream. Imagine if people just say, you know, we don't know where you did a grade 7, for that reason, you can't get in Form 1. Right? And the last point there is that the current CTA requires all modules to be passed in one sitting. Right? Some would argue, no, Makai, that's good. Council, no, you're not getting it right. It's good. But there is a time when you say, those people, would they be different in quality if you recognize the passes that someone is scored in the previous sitting? Okay. Now we said, what are the measures that you can deal with these challenges? The first one is, let's open up an alternative channel alongside SAICA. SAICA is there. Let's look at what we can do about having our people come through becoming CAs. Okay? The second point is, we have considered the Institute of Chartered Accountants, England and Wales. Okay. A comparison of those two, ICAZ and SAICA, we are thinking as council, a comparison of those two, they've rated largely these two institutions at the same level, at the same standing, and the same reciprocal bodies. If you go to ICAZ today, they'll say they've got 8 MRAs. You go to ICAZ, we say we've got 6 MRAs. You try and cross-check, you find we've got the same reciprocal bodies, effectively. Now, the other issues, we've just stepped into ICAZ and say, you, ICAZ, what do you exactly offer? What is in you? And we've discovered that it has got multiple entry pathways allowing ACA, CIMA, SIPA members to have exemptions into the examination process. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about the examination process. You are members already, isn't it? This may not directly affect you, but you can't bring a new shareholder onto a command before informing the other shareholders that we want to bring in another shareholder. Can you do that? You can't, isn't it? So your members, and we're talking about the examination process through which our members, or rather our students, are becoming what? Members. Okay. So really we see benefits as your council. We see benefits of opening the alternative pathway. We just looked at the ACA way. At this stage, substantive decision has been made. But we are saying there's room to actually look at the examination process. So we'll be able to produce more CAs. That's the intention. We have more training offices. The issue of training offices also will come on board. We'll open up and have more training offices. Okay? I guess our tongue's wagging, isn't it? Flexible pathways allowing more students access, e.g. other accounting bodies can be brought into the ICAZ fold easier. We are looking at all that. We should not lower the value of the brand, but how can we have more members on board through our examination process? Okay? We envisage more revenue for the institute and we strengthen the professional training. Now, if you look at these other qualifications, you realize that the examination process has got strategy and ethics. Our examination process, the SAICA examination process, does not specifically focus on what? On strategy is a separate area. Ethics, you only find ethics as part of the what? Yeah, you find it, but it's not a separate area of commitment at the time of your professional development. And also road to localization as law exams will be what? Set under, say, the ICA way, pathway in addition to text, and more influence in who actually have more influence in setting the examination. Now, the steps that we are looking at, we are saying, can't we work with ICA way in training offices and implement the pathway alongside SAICA? This is what the council has provisionally resolved to do and say, can't we look at this? But there is no position that has been taken. But we are interested in looking at the ICA way route. Ladies and gentlemen, I ended there. Siyabonga kakhulu.
Thank you, members. We want to thank the CEO. Let's have one meeting, members. Thank you. Thank you, CEO, for the presentation. Lucy, thank you. Gloria, thank you. Martin, thank you. The President, thank you for the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to invite you, if you've got any question, you may need some more clarification or you want to add, you are free to show us by lifting your hand, then a mic will come to you. I'll start with you, sir, over there. Mic is coming to you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've got my experiences in fact the finance field. So I'll start with the financials first, and there's another one I don't agree with what Makaya said, which I believe is you own a company and your CEO comes to you and tells you, I think the reason we are not performing is because Standard Chartered Bank can't give us loan because the conditions are tight and we should go to a microfinance bank. Yes, it's beneficial there, it's short term, but in the long run, it affects the organization. I believe that route, if not taken, if we don't give it more time as members, it will also dilute the brand. The reason why the CA brand is recognized, let me tell you, in South Africa, for example, is because of that SICA thing. The moment we say I'm just CA is it on my own, man, education in Zimbabwe right now, people don't value it. But if it's something for long term, maybe 2029, somewhere there, to be okay. Okay. Then the financials. The issue of, okay, I understand there's, Mr. Kunamats tried to tell us more about this VAT thing. So it's dating back to 2009 to date, right? Yeah, but there's also some members who haven't been paying, right? Since 2009 to date, that we have written off. Have you also taken into account that in like appealing the tax judgment to say your penalty is this, but you can say, okay, we had built this, but this we can't recover, so it also reduces our debt. Because I understand greater part of our members are not paying, and by now we have written them as bad debts. So you can also get something from that. And the other thing, I know it's a sensitive like part where we've got there's a note where we've got a related payments to a related part, which is an expense, which is like 300,000, close to 300,000. As a member, I would be much more. Yes, I know it might be salary. It says related party. I think I take it related party are members, are CAs who has been paid. So is it just salaries for management or for other members? Because the figure, for me, those are my 3 points.
Thank you very much. Your name, sir? Sorry, your name, sir?
Oh, my name.
All right, before you ask a question, would want this question to be addressed first. Okay. Okay. All right. All right. We will have 3 guys, then we can answer all the questions. Please take note of all the questions asked CEO and President. Can you record the questions asked, please? Also, I've got questions coming through from the diaspora, and we want to welcome the diaspora people all over the world. Thank you very much for joining us live on internet. And also here present is UK chapter represented here, South Africa, Namibia, Botswana. So I want to tell our guys all over the world that you are also represented here. So we'll be considering what they are also asking. Please go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you. My name is Lawrence Ungwe. My question is on the provision for impairment of receivables. I want to believe these are receivables from the member subscriptions. In 2015, it was 53,000, and in 2016, it shot up to 375. Then, if you look closely on on the members' side, we see our members increase because of the reasons alluded before, but we don't see much deregistrations. There were only 4. I wanted to ask, what is the systems in place to enforce so that we make sure the members that are not compliant, they do pay? It's one thing to want us to be 6,000, 100,000. It's another thing to make the 5,000 people, the 500 people pay. I believe if we've got 500 people who pay the proper subscription, we can run this institute, 500 of us, not even 2,000. We are enough to run our institution if we pay our subscriptions. We cannot compromise. Now I'm addressing the issue number 2, where Mr. Makaya was saying we need to rope in other means and try to increase membership. Let's do not under pressure to increase membership, but let's maintain the quality, and let's make sure that we run the institute properly and the people pay their subscriptions. If they don't pay their subscriptions, I think they don't want to be members of the institution. I would think if this institution was mine, they would go. So let's encourage each other to pay subscriptions and not to write off the debts of the members that are still on the book of the institute. Those are two issues that I've addressed there. Then I also wanted to address on the operational issues, the issue of cards. This issue was raised in 2014 in this room, where we said we wanted the cards so that we can have a preferential treatment in the banks, in the golf courses, in the gyms and whatever. It's been 2 years now without the cards. I think there is lack of traction there. We need some traction so that we get the members, the membership cards as quickly as possible. I would appreciate having the card working for one gym in the country rather than not to have the card, because then it means there is no traction whatsoever that have happened. So that we measure traction, please can have some movement there. If we talk of issues, let's not get those issues to stay on the books for 2 years. That's too much time for issues to stay on the plans. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Lucy. Lucy, I think you may need to hold on. I think we've got question we need to deal with right now. We'll come back to you. I think you'll be next over there and also over there. All right, we start with the first question. The first question was, are we not compromising the brand by changing the route? Because SAICA loves us because we are doing SAICA exams. The president will comment.
I think this one is a question I would love to comment on, because I think it's fundamental to our strategy. When we started the strategy of going into mutual recognition agreements, effectively what we're saying is the institutes that you're on mutual recognition with are on equal standing with you. So once you have entered into that relationship, you are now on par. You can't then start saying that you have a lower quality for a particular institute. And I'll explain why this is critical. What happens is, once you've gone into that mutual recognition agreement, if someone does the ICAEW examinations, the only thing they need to do to become a CAZ and to use that designation is basically to make an application. So whether we like it or not, we have already accepted that the quality is the same. So when you look at those 8 bodies that we're saying have mutual recognition agreements with each other, in a similar fashion to when we go into South Africa and we make an application and you get your CASA and you do a localized exam if you want to go into public practice, what you're saying is you're on par. What then happens with globalization is that whether or not you like it, whether we like it or not as CAZ, if ICAO wants to come and practice in Zimbabwe and set up those training offices, we cannot stop them. And that applies to us, even if we wanted to go into the UK to set up as local CA and actually train students, accredit students, and sign them on. Why is this important? The world is getting global, and with localized institutes like ourselves, currently what's happening is, right now in Zimbabwe, we have ICAEW offices that have already been set up and are training accountants who, through the mutual recognition agreements, can still become chartered accountants in Zimbabwe. We know that I think it's the Irish or the Scottish Institute are also doing the same. It's not to say that we are worried that they'll obliterate our brand in this market, but what we're saying is, having established that quality benchmark, and what we said is we had the similar concerns as council around the quality. We then went into an in-depth study, and that in-depth study had a number of areas. And we asked someone independent to do that study for us, so that we are not blinkered by our own perceptions of these brand quality issues. And that study went into the quality of this examination, the support structures, the marking, the brand eminence, the practical requirements. And we did a test like for like. And what came out is that, I know Martin said they were at par, but I think ICAEW was actually slightly higher. And if you look at its membership base across the world, it's established offices through most of English-speaking Africa as we speak, most of Southeast Asia, and part of Europe, where ICAEW is actually the preferred training method. So when we look at what is being presented here, we're saying globalization is something we cannot work against. Quality-wise, I know people will be concerned about the relative quality, but as council, and I recall when we chaired the last council meeting, we actually did it by vote, and we said, who is in disagreement with this decision? It was 100% because of the process that we had gone through. Now, I know we've got members here like Tapio representing the UK chapter who works in, in Tawanda, who works in that jurisdiction. And I think he'll be a good reference point for, what's happening and what's happening across the world. So when we present this, we've spent 2 years on this particular topic. It's not something we've decided just now, but we feel it's very, very significant in terms of what we aspire to be as a brand. And you notice we've said we're not disregarding the SAICA route. It's still one of the alternatives. What we want to do is we want to give it a trial, see what happens, because it's already happening anyway, and then refine as we go along. Remember, SAICA was also a process, and it only started in 1995. Prior to that, there was something else. And with the way that the threats that Martin has mentioned, UNISA, the way they've managed, our relationship, the accreditations that are required in order for you to as a university to get into that qualification, we face significant threats, and we believe that this is one of the ways in which we can try and manage that threat by having alternatives available to us. Sorry, I spent a lot of time on this question. It is a major strategic issue, and welcome for any other debates and questions that members may have.
What Diaspora is saying. The first member said, is ICAZ market itself around university and school? And the second one said, barriers to entry make us special. Not everyone can be a doctor. We cannot have all nurses becoming doctors. Then another member said, we can have all the other membership bodies being part of PAAB, for example, but ICAZ remains ICAZ. So this is what's the board is saying. So I'm reading from the live streaming. They're actually participating as well. So it's very important to consider what they say. All right, so this is a hot issue. So Lucy. All right. All right, okay guys. Lucy, can you take the mic? I want him to start. You say. Okay, all right, you be the first one. Just go to the middle there. Raise your hand, say, yes, you are the first. It's fine, we'll give him a chance, but we start with him here. Okay. No, not yet, you say, but he started. Yeah, it's okay, we'll come back to you. He started. No, it's okay, it's all right. He was the first one, yeah. Is requiring clarification? Please, may you do so? Yes, sir.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is quite a broad topic, and we could spend all our time today discussing it. And perhaps we need to have a separate forum to delve into a lot of detail. We may not have time in this forum. I just want to raise that up front. Can I answer that question, sorry, directly? Yeah.
Okay, let's have one meeting.
Can I?
Hold on, guys.
Hello.
Let's have one meeting.
Hello.
Let's allow the president to speak. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I know it is an emotive topic, and I'll tell you why you will not be able to vote on it. The fact that you have a mutual recognition agreement means you've already voted. That's the way the world works. So what I can do right now is sitting in Zimbabwe, so long as I'm part of a training office, And we have training offices that have already registered with ICAW. I will study my exams. I'll become an ICAW qualified chartered accountant. I'll go to METS and say, METS, here's my application. I'll pay my fees. I'll become a member. So that process with globalization has already happened. So the advantage we have where we can go into the UK and simply practice there without doing exams means that we have already passed that block already. So whether members like it or not, globalization means that the threat that you face where you say, I want to remain a local brand and remain elitist within my local market, once you're in a mutual recognition kind of environment, it's already gone. But members, it's quite difficult for us to address this topic in totality right now. And it may be best, even during this winter school, if you want to have a separate forum for us to go through this, to set up a little side meeting. And we're quite happy to answer all your questions. We're quite happy to take you through the detail of that paper that we did, the research. And I'll be quite happy as well if council members here present who have been part of these deliberations will be available for such a discussion. Is that something you would like to do? And I'll talk to Secretariat and we set up a meeting to go through it in detail. I'm just mindful of our program.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You are keen on? Sorry, could I have a show of hands? I can only hear one person because I think if we set up the meeting, so it seems like there's a general good view in terms of number of members. So what we'll do is we will look at the program, look at the gaps, and then we'll set up a meeting and announce it through the MC. I think probably that's the best way to deal with it.
Thank you, Mr. President. We shall take President's counsel. We are not discussing this issue any further. We'll advise you in due course when we'll be able to discuss that in detail. But in the meanwhile, you can prepare your questions or just do your research so that it's going to be a meaningful meeting. Thank you, Mr. President. Sorry, we are not taking questions related to that anymore.
Excuse me, Mr. Mushojo.
Yes.
I think this being a membership organization, you cannot do what you are doing. Yeah. It would make a lot of sense if all members are allowed to speak.
Yeah.
And for your own information, some or the majority could be on the side of the executive. But the moment you close the door, you are also pushing us on the side where we are not. So I think let's all be given a platform to speak because we've come here to speak about the concerns of our institute, which we love so much.
Correct.
My contribution to this, I don't seem to understand it but what I can say in a layman's language, supply and demand, there's a relationship with the price. The more the supply, the price goes down. As long as what you guys are doing is going to maintain my price, I support it with both hands. But if it is going to affect the price of a CA tag, then there's a problem. But all this we are speaking about is to do with the need for more revenue, actually. So my view is that maybe we can, assuming that the laws that govern the institute allows that, why don't we create more categories of membership, like corporate membership, where, like CBZ can be a member and we can contribute certain amounts, which can go a long way in meeting the activities of the institute. For example, the madam, she says, they want to make the institute a center of reference, meaning that is going to be powered by more research, which the industry can actually see valuable, for which we can pay for. So that could sort a bit of your cash flow challenges. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nyamuzo. Just a point of correction, Mr. Nyamuzo. We are not stopping the debate on this issue. We are saying, the president said, we are creating time for this, which we are going to announce because of time. Because we have got time, we have to make sure that we cover everything. Now, we'll be able to allocate time for this. We'll be announcing tomorrow. All right, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We'll move to the next question, which was on VAT. The question was, we've got members who deregistered. Did we consider that, and is it going to reduce our tax burden? Mr. CEO.
The issue of members who were deregistered, that was factored into the calculations. So we already included that.
Thank you. Is it related to the VAT? Sorry? Is it related to the VAT issue or something else?
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a couple of questions just to clarify based on the presentations that were made. The first one, we're talking about how difficult it is to get the revenue figures that we'd like to get. And I think in the environment that we're in, a lot of organizations, not just ICAZ, are struggling to meet revenue targets. I'd really like to understand a bit more from the CEO what austerity measures ICAZ is actually taking to save costs. I haven't seen that come through strongly. What measures are we taking to ensure that we save costs and minimize the impact on having a lower revenue line? I think that's quite important because this is not unique to ICAZ. Many corporates are having to do the same, and this obviously impacts our members. That's my first question. My second question is that we've clearly lost a lot of members in relation to past members that weren't paying, maybe they didn't see the value or whatever it is. Have we also extended our survey to understand why members that existed don't exist anymore and how we can bring them back as a measure of trying to bring more revenue into the organization? Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move to the third question, which was on bad dates written off, which was asked by the gentleman over there. His question was, why did the bad debts increase from last year to the current year? And why are we writing off those dates if the members are still there? Is Lucy taking this or the CEO? The CEO? And also the implication of VAT has already been covered. So we just want to know why the bad debts increased.
Okay. The increase in the provision for bad debts, as I said, we had second billing in December, and because of that, and only, as I said, 30% of the members paid, and therefore we've had to provide also for the extra billing. If I could move on to the other question, on the austerity. What we are doing is that as far as when we've had a reduction in the number of staff, we are not replacing, we actually share the duties, and we've moved from, we used to have about 27, we are now on 24 members of staff, and we have not replaced. We have not had any salary increments for the last 3 years. We've looked at the expense lines and how we can reduce those, and one of those is, for instance, is the telephones. And now we have, if you notice, we have the 08 number, which has drastically reduced our telephone bill, and which we urge members to use the ZOL, the Africa Online number.
Thank you, CEO, on that comment. All right, before we go there, we just need to address the questions we had. We had a question raised by one of the members. He was asking about system in place to enforce deregistration.
Let me take that. What we've been doing, and you'll see this coming out in the press shortly, is that we've identified a list of people that are going to be deregistered, and these are people who have not paid, I think, over 2 consecutive billings. The process of moving towards issuing a list for deregistration has involved council reviewing the list. We've also been doing one-on-one engagements where we can, so there are people on the list who we may know or who we've circulated that list to the senior partners of the firms. So we're moving to enforce deregistrations more aggressively. And But in doing so, what we wanted to do is to make sure that we've done everything possible to make sure that a point of engagement has taken place before we can move towards deregistering. So it is something that you will see more of if people are not paying, but our process has been, let's try and consult a lot more, let's try and engage a lot more before we move towards deregistering people. But the size of the provision you are seeing is a statement of intent that we're actually moving towards that kind of a process going forward. It's not something that we would like to do, but given the circumstances, it's something that we might need to do, and I think it already has a council process behind it. So the CEO is saying is within the next 30 days you'll be seeing something coming out. So that list we have already started it at council, and we've seen that list.
Thank you, sir. Maybe these two questions, they need to be answered at the same time. The other question was, when are the cards coming out for the preferential treatment? And the survey on members, why they are opting out. Is there a survey done to understand why they are opting out? Maybe the CEO or the president can take those two.
In terms of deregistration, is effectively the survey. Because what happens is you contact the members, some of them are within Zimbabwe, some of them are external to Zimbabwe. What you're seeing is, if you look at the demographics of our base, 50% of the people are spread in those various countries that have been highlighted. In some cases, what's happening is when people move to other countries, they're actually going and getting their primary qualification in that country. The local country qualification becomes irrelevant. And remember what Martin was talking about, exam structure, that prior learning gets accredited. So you could have someone saying, I've got fees that I pay to my local institute, but I'm practicing in a different country. And for me to be well recognized, I actually need the qualification of that country. I go to that local institute, they say, because of your prior learning, actually we will exempt you from a lot of the exams. Just come and take our exam. So you find many people, our local qualification does not become as relevant. You then have people who are in Zimbabwe who either have retired, or people who are in circumstances where they're not able to pay the fees. So we're seeing the difficulties in our country affecting that. But the engagement that we have, the one-on-ones where we are contacting these data, gives us a very good view of that. And there are some very practical realities of trying to maintain the standards that we have and trying to maintain the members that we have.
Thank you. Then on the preferential card.
I think we have to apologize that if it has not moved as well as it should, we should do a lot more, and it's something that I think as council we just have to accept that we possibly haven't done as much as we can. And I'd like to perhaps, working with council, try and help to develop what that framework would look like. And I'm sure with all the partners we have here, even the people who are sponsoring this event, we can come up with something powerful. So it hasn't moved as well as we should have. I think we probably have been seized with other things, but I think it's something that we can only apologize and then in future try and do a bit more.
Thank you, sir. Now we'll take two questions, one from the lady by Lucy and one from chapters outside Zimbabwe, for the sake of time, because one moved to AGM. So lady, you can go. What's your name?
Thank you. My name is Prudence, and my question is around the datas. I've got about two questions. So the first one, my understanding with the MRA arrangements is that you can only continue to be the member of the institute where you're working. So let's say SAICA, you can only continue to be a SAICA member for as long as you're in good standing with ICAZ. I do know that when someone registers, then they get a letter of good standing. Subsequent to that, does ICAZ engage SAICA on its members who are on these MRA arrangements for those ones who are not paying their subscriptions? This is part of the impairment of debtors. So is SAICA actually engaging all the other institutes where they have ICAZ, to recover monies from those in the diaspora that are not paying? That's the first one. The second one, the president mentioned something about two billings. why are we billing a second time if the first time has not been paid? Chances are if the first invoice has not been paid, the second one is not going to be paid. And ICAZ is then having to pay VAT on that, which doesn't make sense. So I would think if someone hasn't paid the initial invoice, you'd probably suspend their account. And then when you've made traction on that first invoice, then you can start billing them. And then the third one is maybe something to consider is automatic suspension. So instead of waiting for this whole process, then the council does that to just say, okay, if in the first 6 months of your invoice you haven't paid, we are suspending you. And then you talk afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear foreign chapter. Yes, there, my man. And give us your name. Give us your name and the chapter you represent.
Okay, so my name is Tawanda Chiko Ore, and I'm the chairman of the UK chapter.
Thank you, sir. Get on.
Okay, so I think I just said my contribution basically, it was more around slightly taking you guys back a little bit, just to support the point that was raised by Roy initially. I'm a member of this institute. I'm also a member of the institute in the UK, and I've really seen how these two chapters work. And as an institute, I really love this institute. But I think it is high time that we sort of like really change and really embrace what's happening globally, because we have got like institute like the in the UK, they have offices all over the world. They've got lots of members, but they don't compromise on quality. And I think we can really do the same, not compromising quality, having several entries where people can really come into the institute, get the qualifications, to go through different exams, without compromising quality, but allowing several members, but at the same time maintaining our brand. Unless we change, we're just going to be overtaken by events. And the other thing as well, I think, just to use the analogy of supply and demand, if we try to keep the price high by reducing supply, what's going to happen is other institutes are just going to walk in and fill that gap, and we're just going to be overtaken by events. So we really need to embrace the change and really just do basically what Roy has pointed out. I think something that we really need to consider and take into account. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Now, like I said, we already have 2 questions. Then we ask the President to answer the question, then move to AGM straight away. So the first question to answer is, members on MRA, if they're not in good standing in Zimbabwe, why should they be in SAICA or ICAO? Mr. President.
Thank you for the question. What we do is, before we deregister the member, we'll also send that list to the institutes where we have MRAs. So if you are with SAICA and you haven't paid, SAICA will also get a list to say this member is not in good standing in their home institute. So that process is followed. In terms of you also mentioned the impairment of debtors and recovery of money. It's always difficult, and I think I've been one of the proponents of saying each member should know their obligations. They should have a responsibility as a professional to make sure that they meet the requirements of that institute. I'm aware of other institutes across the world that say, effectively, if you don't pay your subscriptions, you cannot continue to use the designation and you're no longer a member in good standing. And basically, it's an ethical issue if that is the case and you're practicing unethically if you don't pay your subscriptions. We found that a bit tough to implement. You spoke about suspend and then talk later because of the kind of challenges that our country is going through. We've had to engage members sometimes to get payment plans where it's appropriate if they can't pay within obviously certain guidelines. The issue though is that we have to be sensitive to the environment, and we try our best where we can be sensitive. We do reach a point where we say we can no longer accommodate you, and really for us that is a last resort. When it comes to the issue of 2 billings, if you recall, for those of you who were in Dubai in a similar meeting like this, we presented the issue of VAT. the problems that we were having. And there was an agreement in that meeting of members that we should do a second billing. And the thinking behind it was that the only way in which the institute raises money is from its members. But what I take from the questions that are coming through is that people are concerned about equity amongst members, those who don't pay versus those who do pay, and access to the same services where people have not paid. And it is something that concerns us greatly from a council perspective. And one of the things, if you look at our strategic objectives, has been the membership services and communication with members. Because part of it, given that we are now almost a 50-50 diaspora versus local institute, communication becomes an issue, which is why we've been doing all those outreaches to South Africa, where we've got quite a large number of members. We go to the UK, and the critical thing they've said to us is sometimes it's just that we are not communicating as well as we should be to get some of the issues they understand, fees they have to pay, and some of our systems even in the country where members in South Africa were saying we actually failed to pay you. So we have to engage on a lot of those issues to get this issue going. But I must say it is not easy, and if you feel you've got ideas, please don't wait for this forum to bring those ideas. Let's engage at the institute level. We do have a finance and audit committee, which is headed by senior professionals amongst us, that actually sits and looks at these issues on a day-to-day basis, advises council. And if you feel that you can help us in this area, we're not saying we've got all the ideas and all the intellectual capital. Please get involved. We don't have the answers to everything. Please come and help us if you feel that you can help.
Thank you, sir. UK chapter, we thank you very much. You said we need to embrace global standards on quality and embrace change. I think these are critical issues we will discuss at the time we announce tomorrow. We set aside time to discuss the issue of the pathways. I think it's a whole issue, so we'll allocate some time and we can go through it as members. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your contributions. We value your contributions.
There was one question which we did not answer, which I think deserves an answer around the related parties. Yes, we won't disclose the names, but what we'll just tell you is certain of our members are also employed by the institute, and by virtue of that, they are related parties.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. President. Now thank you very much. We are now moving into our annual general meeting. Thank you, members. Members, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Shall we have one meeting, please? Now we are moving into our AGM. And to take us through the proceedings of the AGM is our president, Mr. Roesh Manikire. I will invite him to come to the front to take us through the AGM proceedings. Please make sure that you sign the AGM register which was being circulated. Thank you.
Thank you all. We're running behind time. And it's always good that we engage in this kind of debate, because I think that's what shapes us and also defines some of the discussions that we're going to have during the course of the winter school, which are very important for helping us move forward as an institute. I'd like to enter into the formal part of this meeting. We try to separate the meetings so that we can have an informal discussion around some of the other issues and then go into the formal part of our agenda. So let me open this formal part of the agenda by inviting you to the 98th annual general meeting of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Zimbabwe. And this is a meeting of members, and I will not observe any protocol here because that has already been done. In terms of a quorum, we're required to have 25 members present, and I believe we do, so we can declare this meeting quorate. Notice of this meeting was issued on the 23rd of June 2016, and having been circulated, I'll take all materials for this meeting as read. We have received apologies from a number of members. I will not read out the list of members, but it is available, and Secretariat has provided me with that list, and it will be noted as part of the record of our meeting. I would like to record and to advise you that we had certain members who passed away during the course of this year, and I'll read them out. I would like us to be upstanding as soon as I've read out the names, and to observe a minute of silence for these members. The names of the members are Mrs. Godfrey Aravine, Michael Tapera, Shadrach Majandu, and Miss Rebecca Muchada. If you could please be upstanding and observe a minute of silence for these members. If we could please take our seats. Thank you very much. I'd like to propose that the minutes of the 97th Annual General Meeting held at the Grand Hyatt Hotel in Dubai on Friday the 7th of August 2015 be taken as read and confirmed as a correct record of proceedings. Could I have a seconder to that motion? Okay, I see Sevius is seconded that motion. Could I request that we then proceed to sign those minutes, that I sign those minutes as a correct record of the proceedings? The annual report, which has been read, and which I have taken as read, and which has been tabled for this meeting, of which due notice has been given, which we have informally been appraised of prior to this meeting, and we've had an opportunity to address, to answer, to invite questions and comments thereon. Included in that annual report is the President's statements, the report of Council, and the audited financial statements. If there are no reservations at this stage, could I propose a motion that we accept the President's statement, the report to Council, and the audited financial statements for the year ended 31 May 2016 to be approved by this meeting? Could I have a seconder for that motion? Okay, the Senior Vice President seconds the motion. Thank you, and other members. Our Council election and composition. For the Mashonaland District, we had 12 nominations for Council, and for 4 vacancies that were available. Members seeking re-election who were re-elected were Brian Jikizana, Bothwo Nyajeka, and 2 new nominees who were elected, Elina Vurere and Goni Tashe Muzamiri. These members were elected to form your next council, and which council will take effect from immediately before the dissolution of this annual general meeting. 2 sitting members, being myself and Clayton, will be stepping down from council before the dissolution of this annual general meeting. For the diaspora chapters, we had 4 nominations that were received, and for 1 council vacancy. Elections were conducted, and I would like to congratulate Tawanda Chukore for winning that election and being the next appointee from the diaspora onto council. Well done for that. I would like to thank Mr. Clayton Kazembe for the years of service that he offered whilst he was on council. And we worked together for many, many years, and he was a sterling member of the council. Thank you very much to Clayton for your hard work and service towards this institute. I would also like to announce that Mr. Zondi Kamwenda, who had been nominated onto council to represent the Human Resources Committee after relocating from Mashonaland to Mashonaland from Matebeleland, served his 3-year term and will be stepping down from council as well immediately before the dissolution of this annual general meeting. Again, I thank Mr. Kumwenda for his years of service and for his dedication to council and to the institute. Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome these new councillors and wish them the best as they provide service to this body of eminence. I would also like to announce the resignation of Mr. David Kwande, who will be resigning with immediate effect immediately before the dissolution of this annual general meeting. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Kwande had been on council for, Mets, do you remember? A long time. I know it was a very long time. I think he's a past president as well. And he served us very well. Thank you to Mr. Kwande for those years of service. Yes, I was looking for the number. It's 20 years. It's pretty substantial, so I think he deserves another hand. I would like to propose the appointment of KPMG as the Institute's auditors for the 2016 to 2017 financial year. Could I have a seconder for that proposal? Okay, I can see some hands there. I just need a name for purpose of the minutes. Tumai Mafunga seconds the proposal. For the record, Tumai is a partner with Deloitte. So he's very independent of that decision. We have floated a number of resolutions for the period June 2015 to May 2016, which we would like to be adopted by the members present. I would just like to read out those particular resolutions and then to request that we adopt them in this meeting if the meeting so agrees. The tenure of council members. In an effort to align the Institute with other professional accounting organizations worldwide in accordance with the trends of good corporate governance, it is proposed that the term of office of councillors be and is hereby limited to 3 terms of 3 years each. That is a maximum of 9 years. Could I have a seconder for that motion? I see there's some very quick hands up there. I'll take Emilia's hand. If you could take note of that for purpose of the minutes. And I take it that we have no one opposing that resolution. Okay. I see no hands, so I take it that motion is carried. The second resolution that we have put forward is in order to accord women representation of council in line with membership demographics. It is proposed that the composition of council be not less than 40% of women by the year 2020. I'll add a bit of color to this one. I can see hands going up very, very quickly. This suggestion is focusing on council, but what we envisage is that committees as well will be appropriately changed to suit this demographic, and that accounting firms and training offices also look to implement similar guidelines on a moral suasion basis, so it's not something that we can enforce. and we believe that it's something that we need to have for the Institute. Could I have a seconder for this motion? I can see Mr. Kwanzira putting his hand up. Is there anyone who opposes the motion? Okay, I can see one. I can see two people. Okay, there's a hand up there. Is that a question or a comment? Okay, I've been asked to give a bit more background and to explain what message we are trying to send by this particular resolution. Have I captured that well? Okay. Okay, great. Why not 50%? Maybe we should be increasing to 50. If you look at the current... Could I ask maybe that we do something quickly? Can we ask the women in the room to stand up? Thank you very much. If you could please sit down. If you look at the demographic statistics that Mr. Kunaka shared, 25% of our members are women. Only 25% of the members. What we're trying to achieve by doing this is we're saying to ourselves at a leadership level that we need to transform to suit the demographics of the country that we live in. It could be very well the same if we were looking at racial demographics. We said maybe council was composed of white people and we are entirely black, or 99 or 98% black population in Zimbabwe. All we are saying is any society has to be demographically represented in all institutions of leadership and governance. That's really what this is about. 40% is really just a starting point. Ideally, we should actually be saying 50% of by 2020. We have left it fairly open. We haven't set targets by each year, and each sitting president, in consultation with council of the day, will sit to decide on the targets that they want to set. But really what we are recognizing is our institute has largely been led by men, and we would like it to be democratized in line with what's happening demographically in our country. But if you look at trends worldwide, it's something that institutions across the world are talking of diversity. And if you notice our resolutions, particularly on the tenure of council and council composition, what they're trying to do is to understand that we are changing as an institute. If you look at, I was just doing a quick statistic, 42% of our members are less than 40. So what we're doing with some of these resolutions is we want to bring diversity, we want to bring in new ideas, and we're saying that we want to also recognize that as an institute we are changing. When we look at the people who are qualifying in our exams currently, we're now getting to almost 50-50% between male and female. Am I correct, Matt, in saying that? And it was one of the most encouraging things when we attended the last results presentation. So all we are saying is let's recognize that we're a younger institute, so we are limiting terms, so young people also have an opportunity to be on council, but also we're giving women who are coming through our systems almost at equal levels with the men an opportunity. And if you don't democratize from the leadership at the top, it's hard to democratize at the lower levels. So that's really what this resolution is about. So why 40%? 40% is a starting point. Ideally, we should be at 50, and these are resolutions we can look at in further meetings. I don't want to open this up to a lot of debate. I'll ask Tumai maybe to make a comment since you're on council and you're part of this debate. Just by matter of order, that having sent out a resolution crafted in the manner that we did and given due notice that we are looking at 40%, that we adopt 40% for purposes of this meeting. The fact that it's not going lower than 40% and there's no suggestion for less than that means at least we are at a minimum. And then if we need to increase it by next year, we can look at maybe doing the 50% and sending out a resolution to that effect. But just for point of order, the resolution that we sent out at 40, and I'd like to propose that we adopt 40% for now, subject to review as we proceed. Could I ask if there are any people who are against this motion by a show of hands? Okay, we have one person dissenting. Anybody else? Is anyone abstaining from this motion? Okay, there are 2 people abstaining. Those who are for the motion. Okay. So I'll take the motion as carried by overwhelming majority by show of hands. Thank you very much. Nominations to council. In order to ensure that council has the right caliber of members, it is proposed that henceforth candidates for nominations to council shall effectively have served on ICAZ committees or chapters for an uninterrupted period of at least 3 years within the last 5 years. I hope you've understood that, and it was in the notice that was sent. Could I have a proposer for this motion? Okay, Stan proposes it again. Any person who is against the motion? I see there's 1 hand, 2 hands against the motion. Okay, there's need for clarification on this one. Effectively, what we are saying is that in order for you to be on council, you have to actually understand how the institute works, have been involved in its structures, also been inducted into the processes that are run at the institute and the organizational structures and culture that is there. So also the reason why we're doing this is we don't want someone suddenly being appointed to council who doesn't actually understand the functions and workings of the institute. That's really all we're saying. And also we're saying if you are committed enough to be on council, you should be committed enough to serve on the committees and other structures within ICAZ. That's really the thinking behind it. So could I just make sure that, again, just call for, by show of hands, who is against the motion? I start with against. Yes, hope. I'll take a few questions. I just want to gauge where people are on this one before we go to vote.
Okay. To say 1 year would be better. If we're looking at, if the issue is to address caliber and commitment, looking at the existing, if you're looking at page 22 of the annual report of the existing council, 35% of the members pitched up for less than 50% of the meetings. So commitment and caliber is not really prescribed by how long you've been in council. So understood, yes, you can't just walk from the street and get in, but 3 years is also a bit harsh.
Okay. I think I've taken note of those comments, and I think my mandate here is for members to vote, and I think for those comments to be noted. If there is a need to review this downwards for whatever reason, perhaps council could deliberate on it, because we'll have a year from now until the next council meeting. But for this motion, whether we carry it or not, I would rather we go to vote, because this is the resolution that was put to you in the notice that was given, and then we take the results of the vote on this particular one. So could I have, by a show of hands, those who are against the motion, to have members who would like to be on council to serve for an uninterrupted period of at least 3 years within the last 5 years, what council already considers. But given that it's a year from now, I think this can be reviewed by council again, so this motion is not carried. Are we happy with that? Is there anyone who is against the way we've done it, so that I'm very clear that we are all on the same page? I take it that we are. I see there's a question right at the back from
I just wanted
Canada.
I just wanted to add a comment, Mr. President, to say when you look at the attendance register for councillors, some of the attendance is quite appalling, and maybe council ought to make a move in terms of that poor attendance.
Okay. Mr. Canada Malunga has raised the issue that council attendance is quite poor, and that there needs to be some sort of a resolution from council. What we had said, maybe just give you a bit of background, because it's something that we noted, but we haven't put it as a resolution here. We have said this is something that can be dealt with by a council resolution. Some of the ideas we discussed is that to say anyone who misses 2 consecutive meetings without special leave having been granted by the president will immediately then have to resign from council. Those are ideas we were talking about, and we feel that they can be dealt with through a council resolution rather than an AGM resolution. So it's something that council is seized with under council reform, and it's something that we are very much aware of that we need to do something about. Thank you very much. In terms of Home Institute membership, if I could move on, number 4, which is the investigation committee composition. In order to improve objectivity and efficiency, it is proposed that the number of voting members sitting on the investigations committee be increased from 3 to 5, and that the quorum be set. Is there anyone who is against this resolution? Is anyone abstaining? Okay, those 4, could I have someone for the record to second that? Mr. Raradze at the back there for purposes of the minutes. So I take this motion as carried. The 5th resolution is in terms of Home Institute membership. In order to ensure that the Institute does not lose members to competing or reciprocal bodies, it is proposed that, and I quote, notwithstanding the terms of the reciprocity agreements which the Institute may enter into from time to time, every member shall, at all times, be required to remain in good standing with the home body. I think this is also to cover a question that came up earlier. So the requirement is that you maintain your home membership, even if the reciprocity agreement that may be signed may not necessarily provide for such, if you are a member by reciprocal arrangement. Is there anyone who is against this motion? Anyone abstaining? I take it everyone is for the motion. And could I have someone for the record just to second it for purpose of the minutes? Mr. Makaya, thank you very much. That brings us to the end of the specific resolutions that we've put in front of us for adoption. Thank you very much for your responses in terms of that formal part of our agenda. I've come to the end of the meeting. We're now on any other business, and I'd like to find out if there is any member who wishes to raise any other matter that needs to be dealt with in this forum, in this annual general meeting. I see 2 hands there. It's Mr. Nyamuzo. I can't see where exactly at the back there. Please go ahead.
And the need to maintain good standing. Is the membership fees the same as a local member? Because I can actually see this as a reason why maybe people who are outside are not able to pay. I would like to think if it is 500 here, maybe for those members, it could be, 30% of that cost. Because principally now I'm somewhere, but I just need to maintain that good standing here. It could help in these unpaid fees so that we bill for what we actually think we could be able to receive.
This was, thank you, Mr. Nyamuza. This was something that came up at the engagements we had with the diaspora. They had concerns that the fees are not the same, and that in some cases were higher than some of the institutes there. And principally, in my opinion, I believe it's because of the numbers. The more members you have, the less you have to run the less in terms of your overhead structures. And principally, in my opinion, I believe it's because of the numbers. The more members you have, the less you have to run your. So it is a concern that the less in terms of your overhead structures. And principally, in my opinion, I believe it's because of the numbers. The more members you have, the less you have to run your. So it is a concern that the less in terms of your overhead structures. And principally, in my opinion, I believe it's because of the numbers. The more members you have, the less you have to run your. So it is a concern that the less in terms of your overhead structures. And principally, because of the numbers that you have, the less you have to run your. So it is a concern that the less in terms of the
we're talking of austerity measures, not to hit out. This is a lovely glossy annual report, but we believe it also costs. I think we're tight on costs. I think electronic platforms would be useful. Number one. Number two, apps for logging in CPD hours. We just wanted to find out what the Institute is doing about that. I think just as a way of making life a little bit easier for us, where sometimes we are trying to log in. I know there are user passwords and everything. I don't know what other members think. I found the process quite difficult and confusing at times. Using the website, I had difficulty. Maybe I may have just been challenged, but things like apps as ways we can embrace technology, cut costs, and increase efficiency.
Thank you for those excellent suggestions. In terms of the annual report being printed, I would agree with you that it's not something that needs to be in physical form. I don't know if there's any statute that prohibits us from issuing it in electronic form. I know in my company we actually had to pass a resolution to change the articles of association. I don't know if Felicity, there is anything that prohibits us under the Charter. She says she's indicating that nothing prohibits us. So I think as a suggestion for next year, I'll take it that your suggestion is we do not print an annual report for next year. We send it out to members electronically.
Just to say, Mr. President, that we print only for the people attending AGM. The rest we send electronic.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Could I perhaps, I know this is an informal part, we are on any other business, this is not a formal resolution, but I just want to make sure that we are carrying each other in the decisions that we are making. Is there anyone who is against us not issuing a physical document? Okay, so I take it next year it will be electronic. So that's that. I think that's accepted. There was also a comment around IT platforms and what we need to do. I think it is one of our limitations as an institute that our IT is not where it should be. So I think that point is taken. And it's something that strategically we're also looking into as council to try and see how best can we improve. It is a source of frustration for many people in Zimbabwe, in the diaspora, and even for councillors and committee members in terms of how we conduct the business of the institute. So that point is taken, and it is something we also accept that it is a problem that needs to be dealt with. So I think there's another question there. Oh,
Thank you. Mr. President, just looking at our cost structure, we seem to be eating more than we can kill. Just maybe a suggestion on how we can reduce our costs. I stand guided, obviously, by the guys in the executive, but looking at the cost we've incurred on continuous professional development, to me it seems a bit high. I don't understand why, as an institute, we carry that cost. Surely CPD is something that can be outsourced. We just need to identify outsource partners for the respective areas, and then they just bill an appropriate recovery to the members directly. I don't see why the institute needs to be incurring cost on CPD.
I think I take note of that comment. Largely, CPD is a recovered cost. So you're seeing the cost structure, but you'll have income related to it as well. So it's not purely an out-and-out cost of the institute. I don't know if I could perhaps, in closing this meeting, sorry, Metz, you wanted to add something before I take one more question, unless there are any other burning questions?
I've got one other business. You didn't see me when you saw the other two. Can I? Okay. I just want to take the opportunity, or before I do that, just to say, I think there was a question which was not answered, to say we don't charge non-resident members the same as resident. We charge them less. When we're charging 530, I think we're charging them 403. And this, going into 2016, 2017, we've reduced that slightly to 380. And if it was not for the challenges that we have, we would reduce that further. And then my other business was just to take the opportunity to thank Deloitte and Touche for having been the auditors for the Institute for the last 3 years. I hadn't finished on a pro bono basis. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deloitte. I think there was one more question. Gloria, before you come.
Just thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President. Just two things I wanted to contribute as also a way of increasing maybe revenue for the Institute. I've seen that in some countries they've put an act where they say if an employer employs an accountant or a CA who is not registered, there are penalties, etc. So it can be something that can be considered as well. I don't know if it's been considered before. And then the last thing is in terms of the what's happening with other institutes outside also Zimbabwe is that you'll find that somebody can be working outside the country and being a member of that institute there, but obviously is not a full member or a member in good standing locally. The resolution you have passed just now is good, but I think the institute can do more in partnering with those institutes outside the countries to make sure that they can provide a list of saying, give us the members who are registered in your country and check against your records. How is their standing this side? Then you can also monitor, because otherwise I don't get it to say, why should I be registered outside the country but I'm not paying here, but I'm taking advantage, because normally when you do your CPDs, in those countries, you don't do your CPDs. You tick that I'm a member, maybe of the institute here, but yet you are not a good standing member. And obviously maybe those institutes, they don't do counter checks with you this side. So it can be something that we can also cap.
Thank you very much. Gloria?
Yes, Mr. President, on behalf of Council, I would like to propose a vote of thanks to the President for his leadership, guidance, and work during his tenure of office. That's 2016.
Thank you very much.
I would like to also thank you, Mr. President, for the work that you put into Council for the last 14 years that you've been on Council. And we know and hope that we'll still rely on your Council even when you're off Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, I would like to declare this meeting closed, and I would like to request that all councillors, including the new councillors, to remain behind for the first council meeting of the 2016-2017 presidential year. Thank you very much.
Mike.
ZB jackets tonight, please remember ZB jackets.